have about a dozen municipalities of different sizes, some relatively small, some really big, that have started implementing something like a basic income. And it's spreading from one municipality to another. And we're quite excited to see where this will go.
So at that local level, it's a policy, not a pilot?
It's a policy. So they don't bother with the pilot phase. It's not like 2 years and then everything reverts back to normal. This is an actual policy that's been implementing and has been growing. It has been expanding within municipalities and across municipalities.
How's it being funded?
It's basically funded through oil money. In Rio de Janeiro, the state, there's a lot of oil exploitation, and the oil company effectively pays dividends to the municipalities, and that's a big chunk of their budget. So some of these municipalities have then decided, in addition to, of course, doing infrastructure projects and various other projects, they've decided to turn this into something like a basic income that covers a big chunk of their population. I know this is sort of always a big concern. You have a basic income and suddenly that means populations are going to start coming in, etc., etc. They're actually quite happy with that because it's an economy boost, right? Ultimately, they're quite happy with this because it also means people are staying around, young families are staying around, they're not moving out.
That doesn't mean Brazil's results can be reproduced.
The thing to keep in mind is Brazil is a bit of a unique case in the sense that municipalities really have a lot of local power. Like, for example, they have power over their budgets. So you need to be careful about thinking that Brazil is really, oh, it's amazing what's happening there. Let's just copy-paste this into Ireland or UK or any other place. Every time you look at an idea like that, you do need to adapt it to local circumstances.
And so the conversations continue.
Every time we have a new pilot, it's like the discussion gets beefed up again. You have another spike. And this is, I think, a really, really important part of the story of why basic income is now suddenly being taken seriously. Also, because these pilots sort of are scientific projects, suddenly that means the policymakers will start to take it much more seriously. And that includes policymakers within countries, but it also includes big organizations like the World Bank, IMF. Suddenly these people start taking it seriously because there is evidence, there's actual practical reality to look at.
So back to our main question. Why is basic income being debated? It's already been talked about and tested for decades. The various issues it aims to address, like inequality, poverty, streamlining welfare systems and financial security, were also there from the start. What's changed now is the accelerating impact of AI on employment. Big tech's backing of basic income has drawn unconditional cash transfers deeper into scenarios about its role in the future of work and the society that might create. This edition of The Inquiry was written and presented by me, Charmaine Cozier. The producer was Daniel Rosny, researcher Evie Yabsley, editor Tom Bigwood, and technical producer Craig Boardman.
I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. You are with CBC, and wow, the snow just started coming down in Winnipeg. It was completely dry. Thought maybe this missed us, and then there it appeared. So you've got snow coming down pretty heavily. It's coating the ground with white. It is melting mostly on contact, except not on the boulevards and such. With today's temperature of a high of 2 degrees, that should, some of it's going to melt off. We have a windy day. Snowfall amounts around 5 centimeters. Now, we're not in the heart of this, though. We have warning levels across Manitoba for snow squalls and for also for snowfall warnings across much of the province. So before we get into more details about any of this, I want to go right to Heather Wells, who's going to give us our news headlines, and then I'll read some more about what's going on with the weather. Heather, what's up?
Good morning. Well, a high school student in Western Manitoba says young people in rural communities need more mental health support. Riley Frost is a student in Rivers Collegiate, northwest of Brandon. In March, a student there was arrested on charges of planning a violent attack at that school. Frost wishes young people in his area had more resources. The Speaker of the Manitoba Legislature says PC leader Abi Khan made a hateful remark about Health Minister and Deputy Premier Uzoma Asseguera. Yesterday, Tom Lindsay telling the House he had to listen to an alternate recording of Question Period from March 17th, where Khan is quoted as saying, "You're a terrible person, whatever you are." He yesterday apologized in the chamber. We're going to hear more about this story in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Good morning to Heather Wells in our news center, to our control room here, Abby Adiyemi and Darren Marash. Good morning, guys. Good morning to Corey Funk, also, who's directing the show today. And if you can hear me scrambling for information, it's because I'll never have enough time to tell you about all this. But why don't we just tell you what highways are closed because of the snow systems? So we have highway closures all around Dauphin. Highways are closed. Highway 5, Oka River to Grandview. Darren's got a map up now. Highway 10 from the north entrance to Riding Mountain National Park all the way to Pine River. Highway 20, Oka River to Fork River. Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin is also closed. So as of 5 o'clock this morning, as mentioned, that highway between Ethelbert and Dauphin closed. Stay with us. We'll update the storm as we go. World Report's next.
On cue.
There's a new stage production coming to the National Arts Centre that's telling stories about the environment and climate change, but a little bit differently.
I was profoundly unhappy in this house.
You'll hear from the theatre director Nina Lee Aquino about the new play Cicadas and how to tell a story about climate change that doesn't feel like eating your vegetables.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. The 2-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran is facing an immediate and violent test. Just hours after U.S. President Donald Trump suspended planned strikes, Kuwait and the UAE are reporting fresh drone and missile attacks. There are also reports of unexplained explosions at key Iranian oil facilities. Megan Williams has the latest from Dubai.
After 6 weeks of war and thousands killed, a pause in the conflict. It was confirmed less than 2 hours before President Trump's civilization or death deadline, with both sides agreeing to stand down. In Iran, there was jubilation.
I was genuinely happy from the bottom of my heart. Hopefully, this can lead to the lifting of sanctions and allowing Iranians to finally breathe.
But also skepticism.
I can't say I'm fully for or against it. The other side is not reliable. They only stick to agreements when they have no choice.
The ceasefire deal has Iran halting its forces if attacks against it stop. Ships will resume passage through the Strait of Hormuz for 2 weeks, and negotiations begin Friday in Islamabad. Iran's 10-point plan includes recognition of its nuclear enrichment rights and an end to sanctions. Trump called the proposal workable. But Iran, twice burned by attacks during previous talks, has made clear this is not the end of the war. Still, oil prices plunged, with Brent crude down 13%, the biggest single-day drop since the Gulf War of 1991. The UAE declared it had, quote, triumphed in a war we sincerely sought to avoid. But its ambassador to Washington called the ceasefire not enough, demanding a conclusive outcome against Iran. The most worrisome part of Iran's proposal, that it could manage the strait going forward. Here in the Gulf, where missile alerts rang out just hours before the deal was announced, relief is cautious at best. Megan Williams, CBC News, Dubai.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is insisting the 2-week ceasefire does not apply to Lebanon. The IDF is continuing its ground operations against Hezbollah. Video shows a large blast and rising smoke this morning after a strike in southern Lebanon. The Israeli stance is a clear contradiction of what Pakistan's Prime Minister said about the ceasefire deal. He said it would include a pause on fighting in Lebanon. And the Reuters news agency reports Hezbollah fighters agreed to halt attacks. In the past, Iran has demanded Lebanon be included in any peace deal it made with the United States. Canada's Iranian community is feeling a complex mix of relief and dismay. The CBC's Caroline Bargout spoke with members of the diaspora about why this reprieve feels so complicated.
It is disappointing. It's definitely disappointing.
That's not the reaction you would expect from an Iranian Canadian after news a 2-week ceasefire was reached. But Coquitlam resident Kamir Mahenza says his family back home in Tehran are desperately hoping for a regime change, whatever it takes.
Nobody wants to see their country bombed. They don't want to see devastation. But at the same time, if that leads to the end of this regime, then it's a price to pay.
Hamid Farmani owns a restaurant in North Vancouver. His family lives in Shiraz, a city in south-central Iran where Israel struck a petrochemical facility.
We are full of stress these days.
2 hours before U.S. President Donald Trump's deadline, his family called to say bye for now. Farmani wants to be happy there's a reprieve in the fighting, but doesn't know how to feel anymore.
It's very confusing days. We don't know what should I do, what should we do. We don't know, should I thinking, should I waiting, or should I just be relaxed, because these days is very confusing days.
He and Mahenza worry for the future of Iran.
If you don't have freedom, you have nothing.
When all is said and done, they hope Iran is still standing, but the regime is not. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Vancouver.
Seoul says North Korea has fired numerous ballistic missiles toward its eastern waters. The most recent flew at least 700 kilometers, according to South Korea's military. It also says it suspects Pyongyang of launching another ballistic missile as recently as yesterday. Seoul has been pushing for a thaw in relations between North and South Korea. But last night, an official in Pyongyang said South Korea would always be the North's most hostile enemy state. As Canada's market reopens to Chinese electric vehicles, Chinese automaker BYD is facing new allegations of forced labor practices. BYD is the world's largest manufacturer of electric vehicles. Its cars are affordable, but are they cheap because the people who built them were abused? Janice McGregor has been taking a closer look in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, where are these allegations coming from?
Martina, China Labor Watch is a New York-based nonprofit that investigates cases of worker exploitation, both inside China and around the world by Chinese enterprises. It received a tip from a migrant laborer at BYD's new $6 billion facility in Hungary, someone who felt trapped by coercive labor practices and was unable to go home as promised. And that led to field interviews with over 50 other workers at the site. The report describes things like 7-day work weeks, no rest at all unless severe weather disrupted construction, no extra pay for all that overtime, delayed wages, and a tangled web of recruiters and subcontracting arrangements, making it hard for workers to hold anyone accountable. Project Officer Elaine Liu says these labor practices set a dangerous precedent.
It's important that consumers know that what's really behind some of these electric vehicles. Chinese workers who are being brought in to work on these sites are being employed in quite horrible conditions.
Janice, as far as these vehicles go, have any of these Chinese EVs even arrived in Canada since the Prime Minister agreed to lower tariffs in return for China buying more canola?
Well, I've asked, and neither the CBSA nor several ministers' offices will say. The Border Services Agency did disclose something else, though. Back in 2023, it says it intercepted and detained some shipments of car parts from China under suspicion that they were made with forced labor. The importer in that case dodged further scrutiny by simply shipping the parts back to China. So CBSA caught those goods in time, but are they catching the goods all the time, especially now that the U.S. is considering more tariffs on Canada for not holding the line against what it considers unfairly traded Chinese EVs?
That's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
New Brunswick's police watchdog says a Bathurst police officer is facing multiple charges for allegedly harassing a former intimate partner. The Serious Incident Response Team says the Bathurst force contacted them last May. Investigators learned about 2 more related incidents alleged to have happened the following month. They say the alleged activity occurred over a 2.5-year period beginning in November 2022. The accused is to appear in court in June. Sentencing is scheduled for today in Los Angeles for the woman referred to as the ketamine queen. Jasveen Sangha is the last person to be sentenced for selling drugs to Matthew Perry. Last year, she pleaded guilty to distribution resulting in death. Steve Futterman reports.
She is the woman accused of supplying the fatal dose of ketamine that killed actor Matthew Perry in October 2023. Jasveen Sangha allegedly conspired with 2 doctors and Perry associates to get the actor the drug he desperately wanted. Last year, she pleaded guilty to a number of charges, including the most serious, distribution resulting in death or serious bodily injury. Prosecutors say this was all about money.
These defendants took advantage of Mr. Perry's addiction issues to enrich themselves.
Martina Estrada was the U.S. attorney when the charges were first filed in August 2024.
In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being.
Matthew Perry's substance issues and their impact were well known. In his 2022 memoir, he described suffering a ruptured colon in 2018, which left him in a coma for 2 weeks. Jasveen Sangha has been described as a known drug supplier, so well known that she was often referred to as the ketamine queen. Federal prosecutors are expected to ask for a 15-year sentence, while defense attorneys will argue that Sangha be sentenced to time served. Most legal experts believe she will be given significant time behind bars. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. How you doing out there? Things got white pretty quickly with the snow coming down. This is a fast-moving system, and that means we have snow squall warnings across much of the province, including Winnipeg. So things are going to swirl around out there as the snow continues to fall. We also have highway closures already this morning. Corey will be in with those in just a moment for you. So welcome to another spring day in our province. It's Wednesday morning, April the 8th. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to CBC's Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, right on cue, Heather Wells just passed me some school closures as well. So we'll get into those when we talk about our traffic and highway closures. So stay tuned. That's in a moment. Also, this hour on the show, we want to mention that we're going to be talking about the next season of Challenge, and that is wildfire season. We had our worst year in Manitoba for wildfires in 30 years last year. There's a new report. The Canadian Forest Service scientists will be on to talk about the agency's wildfire forecast for this coming season. So that's this half hour. You don't want to miss it. Let's go to Heather Wells, speaking of whom, and she is in our news center with other stories and updates. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, a high school student in Western Manitoba says young people in rural communities need more mental health support. Riley Frost, a student at Rivers Collegiate, that's northwest of Brandon. You may recall in March, a student there was arrested on charges of planning a violent attack at that school. Frost wishes young people in his area had more resources, so we'll hear from him coming up. And Manitoba's Conservative Party leader is being reprimanded over a comment deemed by the legislative speaker as dehumanizing. The comment was directed at the first non-binary member of the legislature in Manitoba's history, the health minister and deputy premier Uzoma Asseguera. So more on that coming up in our next news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
And now the closures that Heather so kindly updated me with. So here are the cancellations to this hour so far. Due to the weather and road conditions, all schools are closed in Lord Selkirk School Division. That means no buses running, staff not expected to report to their place of work. So that's Lord Selkirk. In addition, schools and buses canceled in Evergreen School Division, and no school buses today in Swan Valley School Division. Those school is on. Now, while I'm on that, I think actually usually we go weather next, but why don't we go traffic next? Because Corey has the list of highways that are closed.
Sure, and I wouldn't be surprised if this list grows throughout the morning. So right now, all the highways around Dauphin are closed right now. So that includes Highway 5 from Oka River to Grandview, Highway 10 from the north entrance of Riding Mountain National Park to Pine River, Highway 20 from Oka River to Fork River, and as well in the far west of the province, Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin also closed right now due to poor conditions. Also, just looking at Manitoba 511 right now, seeing the perimeter being reported as covered right now as well. So I'll be keeping an eye on those conditions throughout the morning. And if you have any updates for me, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. Let me know what you're seeing out there on the roads, on the highways, on the bike lanes. We'd love to hear from you all over the province. That number 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Now, this is moving quickly. I can't stress enough. I woke up at 4 o'clock, looked out the window. There was nothing. Now I'm looking out our studio window at Portage Avenue, and it is covered. I mean, even as soon as I said it was melting on contact on Portage, now it's starting to pile up sort of that slushy stuff. So it's coming fast. Abby is here now with her actual forecast. But before then, you actually picked up the phone this morning and talked to someone who turned around on the highway?
Yeah, I have a friend actually visiting Swan River for Easter, and they were supposed to hit the road this morning to make it back to the city in good time, but they had to make a U-turn because all the highways between Dauphin and where they are is closed, and they can't even make any way around.
Yeah,
so they just have to turn around.
And you got to check before you go out.
Yeah.
Okay, what's coming the rest of the day? What's going on?
We got snow squalls warnings in effect for most of the regions. We have this line of heavy snow moving through right now. If you look outside, you'd notice it hit the city, and it will be impacting your early morning commute. We're talking about expect visibility to drop to near zero while the snow piles up really fast. We're talking about as fast as 5 centimeters in 1 hour will be piling up. This will make travel really, really sketchy for folks around the Steinbach area and all the way towards Selkirk. While for the west, we have yellow snowfall warning. Also, it continues for the Parkland and into the Interlake regions this morning, impacting Dauphin, Swan River towards Arborg. We're talking about additional 5 to 15 centimeters of heavy snow coming your way on top of what has already fallen overnight. So travel also remains challenging for people that will be hitting the road. If you can't make it, please turn back. It is not advisable. We have closures around the Riding Mountain area. Also, for Winnipeg right now, forecast, we're looking at blowing snow already in the city and even at the airport. Accumulations, we're going to see about 2 to 10 centimeters and, the potential for blowing snow that we've been witnessing. But currently, we're looking at temperatures hover between 0 and 1 wherever you are in the city, and temperatures going to stay around 2 degrees before we hit a high of +3 later today. So just take it easy out there and be safe on the roads.
Welcome to the Air Miles Reward Program, with hundreds of ways to get miles, ranging from gas, grocery, pharmacy, home improvement, and liquor.
So we're listening to part of an ad for Air Miles, and you better grab them at Manitoba Liquor Marts while you can, because you can only collect them there until May 31st. The signs on the doors say that the Air Miles Rewards program is ending after nearly 30 years of rewards and benefits to the customers and partners. Aside from it ending at Liquor Marts, Air Miles as we know it is soon going to be no more. Patrick Soika of Rewards Canada spoke about this with guest host Julie Buckingham yesterday on Up to Speed.
What should we take away from the Liquor Mart's decision to no longer offer Air Miles?
I think it's just an evolution for a lot of retailers and even the programs. When you have a partnership this long, sometimes you have to reevaluate and see what works. Both for the program and for the retailer. And I think this is just kind of a natural evolution we've kind of seen with a lot of loyalty programs, in that they lose partners, they gain partners, and that's kind of where this has gone.
Air Miles used to be that's all in capitals, the rewards program. What's happening with it now? And wasn't it in trouble before?
Yeah. So it's in a big transition process right now. Yeah. So a few years ago, their parent company declared bankruptcy. Bank of Montreal bought them, came to their rescue, and has been totally reinvigorating the program for the last, it's getting close to 3 years, I believe now, and putting a lot into the program. But the Air Miles name, definitely went through some difficulties, and a lot of people still associate it with, travel, or that you have to earn a lot of miles before you get rewarded. So now they're transitioning. They're going to sunset the Air Miles program, and they're going to call it Blue Rewards. And it's just kind of this whole new focus on everyday value, that you can earn, points every day and redeem points every day if you like, and you don't have to save up for those big rewards. They do have the big reward options, but it's going to work for everybody.
So on its website, Blue Rewards, it says, quote, represents the next evolution of loyalty programs, a bold transformation designed to deliver more rewarding, seamless, personalized loyalty experience for Canadians. So what will be different about Blue Rewards versus Air Miles?
I think it's going to be, they're expanding their partnerships. We do know they're adding a bunch of dining partners, so it's going to be just more everyday partners. But they're also adding, other partners like Porter Airlines and Fairmont Hotels. So they're just kind of broadening the scope of where you're going to be able to earn points and most likely redeem points. We still haven't learned all the details yet on redemption partners, but I think for most people, it's part and parcel of the program is going to be the same. I'm just saying the skeleton remains and it's the skin that's changing. But it's just going to be more of a focus to let people know and Canadians know that the program is there for you, like on an everyday basis.
In a statement, Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries told us in part, as you know, in January, the Air Miles program announced a transition to Blue Rewards, a new simplified loyalty program, and our teams have been working to update our partnership to align under the new program. However, after careful consideration, we decided to part ways as our respective priorities and strategic direction have evolved differently. Later in the statement, it says we are exploring what other loyalty programs are available and whether they would be a fit for Manitoba Liquor Marts. And we'll follow our usual procurement process if we decide to engage with another provider. So what do other provincial liquor stores offer, since it sounds like Manitoba Liquor Marts is not going to go with Blue Rewards?
Yeah, so there's definitely there's a few different options out there depending which province you're in. Ontario, LCBO is with Aeroplan. Here in Alberta, the only major ones are kind of your Sobeys and Scene Plus liquor store, or Sobeys and Safeway liquor stores there with Scene Plus. And then you have your like Co-op, Calgary Co-op, which has their own program. So I think just kind of provincially, they kind of stick with it varies across the country. And so I'll be curious to see what Manitoba does. I think some jurisdictions have even gone with their just kind of they create their own loyalty program, which nowadays it's very easy to create your own loyalty program. So yeah, I'll be watching this closely too to see what Manitoba Liquor Mart does if they choose a different program or choose to go a totally different route, like say their own program.
So what is the trend of people using reward points, especially due to the high price of everything these days?
Yeah, so I mean, we're seeing, more and more focus on how you can save every day with your programs. So groceries, a lot of people are using their points and miles to help pay for groceries, seeing how they can earn more on groceries. Gas as well. There's huge wars in the gas space, the fuel rewards. You have petrol points challenging, the PC Optimum, SO Mobile partnership. They're all over the place, and they're and again, I guess with gas prices increasing so much, that's a big one. I've seen a lot of talk recently about how you can save at the pump, and that's using these loyalty programs. And then you have the connected credit cards where you get discounts. And that's the other thing too, is you look at your spending habits. If you are somebody who say shops at say Manitoba Liquor quite a bit, you're not 100% losing out on Air Miles because their credit card is one of the few that has what's called an accelerated earn rate on alcohol purchases. So you earn actually a little bit more by using that credit card at Manitoba or other liquor stores across Canada. So everybody kind of has to look at their own spending habits, and they can even find the right program or right credit card that matches their spending habits the most. And then you want to look at how quickly you can use those points. If you're looking, you want to use it, to use these points to help you financially, you want to find the ones that let you redeem as little as, in say Blue Rewards will be 1,500 points for $10, which is the equivalent of Air Miles 95 for 10. So you want to look for those ones that give you, your rewards quite quickly.
What's a couple common mistakes that people make when it comes to cashing in or using their points? I know some people say, oh, I'll cash it in for $10 here, $10 there, whereas I save it up. If I'm cashing in, I'm going to get $500 worth of stuff.
Yeah, it depends on the program. A lot of programs nowadays, if you look at something like Scene Plus and to a point Air Miles or the new Blue Rewards, they're considered flat rate redemptions, what we see. So it almost doesn't matter where you use your points, you're going to get pretty close to the same value on your redemptions. So whether you're redeeming for $10 off groceries or $500 off travel, same way even with something like WestJet Rewards, they're pretty much a flat rate redemption. So it doesn't matter if you're redeeming for $10 off your flight or $300 off your flight. The programs where you maybe want to hold on to your points, and again, it comes down to the person, are like your Aeroplans, your Marriott Bonvoy, places where they have potential for what we call outsized value redemption, and that's redeeming, say, for a business class flight with Air Canada or their partners, or redeeming for an over-the-water bungalow in the Maldives. Those are things you have to save up for. But again, you can use a lot of these other programs to discount those exact same places. So if you have a $3,000 vacation coming up, you have $300 worth of points. Well, you can make your vacation cost only $2,700 or bump it up to $3,300.
So that was Patrick Soika of Rewards Canada speaking with guest host Julie Buckingham on Up to Speed yesterday about the end of Air Miles coming soon. Well, you might be thinking about a warm weather getaway this morning. Manitoba has snow, a lot of it coming down fast. Today, let's read the list of two things here. Highway closures, first of all, this is what we know so far. Highway 5 Oka River to Grandview is closed. Highway 10 from the entrance to Riding Mountain National Park in the north to Pine River is closed. Highway 20 closed. Oka River to Fork River. Highway 83 Russell to Roblin is also closed. Right now it's 0 in Winnipeg. We're expecting this snow to continue for the morning. Also, school cancellation. Seine River School Division is closed. No school buses in Swan Valley School Division, though their school is on. Schools and buses both canceled in Evergreen School Division. Mountain View School Division is all closed. Interlake School Division all closed. And Lord Selkirk School Division is closed. And staff there not expected to report to work. It's going to be sketchy for the morning. We'll have a full report coming up with your weather and your regional weather forecast at about 6:40. Right now it is 6:24. Well, let's switch to a different season. In our province, the wildfire season in 2025 was the worst in 30 years. It killed 2 people in Lac du Bonnet. It forced over 32,000 people to flee their Manitoba communities. It burned 2.1 million hectares of land throughout the spring and summer. And when you talk about the communities affected, I mean, you name it. Lac du Bonnet, Nopaming, Whiteshell, Pimicikamak, Flin Flon, Air Beach, Lynn Lake. So what's going to happen this year? The last 3 years have been Canada's worst wildfire years on record, with more area burned than ever before. Let's talk about the report that's just come out. 2026 wildfire season is rapidly approaching, and there's new wildfire forecasts from the National Resources Canada group, and they're giving us an early picture of what to expect. So Jan Belanger is here to break down the forecast for us. He's a research scientist with the Canadian Forest Service. Good morning.
Good morning.
What can Manitoba specifically expect this season?
Yeah, so as you mentioned here at the Canadian Forest Service, we are using the Environment Canada seasonal forecast for the next 4 months to seek to which extent the fire weather conditions might be severe or not all across the country. So it includes, of course, Manitoba. And so we are using the temperatures, precipitation, relative humidity, and wind speed to assess those conditions. And unfortunately, we can expect again this year conditions that might be above or well above average for most of the country, and that includes also Manitoba.
I'm looking month to month because in your report you can do that. So just if you look at where well above average risk happens, already starting about a month from now, a month and a bit, mid-May, in central Manitoba we start to see a greater risk. In June that moves further north, like covers most of northern Manitoba, and June is north and central. And then if we look at July, it sort of is really pushed to the north. How do you determine, what factors are you looking at specifically in that forecast to make these determinations?
Yeah, so we are using the Environment Canada seasonal forecast. So we are actually calculating what we call the fire weather indices, and those fire weather indices, they are actually including the daily temperature, precipitation, relative humidity, and wind speed. So the higher is the fire weather indices, so the more severe, the more conducive the weather conditions are for fire. And so we are putting all of those seasonal forecasts together, and so we can have a better idea of if the conditions appear to be above or below normals when we are comparing to previous years, for example.
How does this year's forecast compare to what you were looking at last year at this time?
Yeah, so we know that Manitoba you already mentioned that Manitoba had a very, very severe fire season last year. So more than 2 million hectares burned during 2025. During the last 3 years, we were also forecasting using the seasonal forecast that those fire season might be severe, given the weather forecast, the seasonal weather forecast that we had at that time. It's always difficult to make some comparison in the month of April because there is still quite a lot of uncertainty, but still those projections for the next few months are quite similar, I would say, to those that happened the years before. But one thing that is very important to mention is that it doesn't mean that even though we are projecting above average fire weather conditions, doesn't mean that it was translate into a higher fire activity, because there's a lot of other factors that are also included when we are trying to predict fire activity in at such a long term.
Other factors like what?
For example, ignitions. Ignitions are very, very important. We can talk about human-caused ignitions or lightning-caused ignitions. Those are obviously very, very difficult to predict. So that's pretty much why we are focusing on the fire weather per se, not the fire activity. And we know that those conditions are very, very difficult to predict because we don't know when those ignitions will occur. We don't know if they will occur during conditions that are very dry, so very conducive for fire. So there's still a lot of uncertainties about those about what could look like the fire season this year.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for the conversation. And I know it's a large report, so thank you for focusing on Manitoba for us.
Thank you.
That is live with us via Zoom, Canadian Forest Service scientist Jan Boulanger on the forecast for the upcoming wildfire season. We'll ask the Premier more about preparation tomorrow when he is on our program. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We've got a snowy morning on our hands right now. Very snowy. It's come down so fast. All of Portage Avenue is now white with snow, and we're not even in the worst part of this. So we'll get your full forecast on in a moment. We'll talk about school and highway closures after your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, you are waking up in Winnipeg to a snow squall warning. Not just Winnipeg, but large parts of the Interlake as well. And it is still a snowfall warning for parts of the Interlake and parts of the Parkland region as well. In Winnipeg today, the strong wind is going to ease through the morning, and a high today of 2. A high school student in Western Manitoba says young people in rural communities need more mental health support. Riley Frost is a student at Rivers Collegiate, northwest of Brandon. In March, a student there was arrested on charges of planning a violent attack at the school. Frost wishes young people in his area had more resources.
Parents need to speak to their kids and connect them with professionals if they are getting bullied, because that is a thing that can be detrimental to your mental health, but I think there also should be supports for all kids and whatnot.
CBC News spoke with 3 different parents who say the teen is charged, has a history of violent behavior. They all allege the youth threatened their children with a knife. RCMP cannot confirm whether the accused had past interactions with police because he is a youth. The teen's first court appearance is scheduled for later this month. Manitoba's Conservative Party leader is being reprimanded over a comment deemed by the legislative speaker as dehumanizing. The comment was directed at the first non-binary member of the legislature in Manitoba's history, the Health Minister and Deputy Premier Uzoma Asseguera. Ian Fraze reports.
Heckling in Manitoba's legislature. Tory leader Abby Khan.
School divisions. We're grateful for our partnership with the superintendent from...
Khan's recent comment was directed to NDP Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera, who identifies as non-binary. Khan is heard saying, "You are an awful human being, whatever you are." The audio recording, confirmed and released by Speaker Tom Lindsay.
I was shocked and appalled to hear such dehumanizing comment.
Asseguera says Khan's comment isn't appropriate for an elected official.
That was not only disgusting, dehumanizing, and derogatory and transphobic, it was in fact dangerous.
But Khan denies spewing hate.
And I did not attack Minister Asseguera on the basis of their gender identity.
He says his comments are being taken in partial context and that he was calling on the NDP member to repeat whatever they were saying outside the legislature. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The United States and Iran have reached a temporary 2-week ceasefire, and both sides claim victory.
ایران به یک پیروزی عظیم دست پیدا کرده.
Iranian state television says Iran has achieved a great victory, forcing America to accept its plan, which includes reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Lindsay Cole is an anti-war protester in New York. He is relieved President Trump did not follow through on his threat to destroy Iran.
It's nice to hear that an entire civilization is not getting extinguished today, but we have a lot of work left to do, and that's why we're still here and we're going to keep coming out.
Israel says the temporary ceasefire with Iran does not include Lebanon, where it's fighting against Hezbollah militants. You can hear the latest on this story and other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Winnipeg nonprofit says it's expecting more Somalis to cross the border into Manitoba as the weather warms up. Abdikar Ahmed at the Rasilia Community Wellness Center estimates more than 100 Somalis came to this province during the winter, fleeing an immigration crackdown in Minnesota.
People were weeks and weeks of not leaving their apartments just to make sure that they are not caught. Now that the conditions are improving and the weather is changing, we expect an influx of many other refugee claimants from Somalia or any other country that has refugee claimants that are facing similar circumstances in the U.S.
A new border reform bill in Canada makes it harder for people to claim asylum if they're coming from the U.S. Ahmed says no laws will stop people from crossing if they fear for their lives. A Winnipeg woman is suing the care home where her mother was a resident before she died in 2024. She alleges the elderly woman was neglected before dying of complications from an infection that spread to her bones. Olga Ozubuko died less than 2 weeks after she started having trouble breathing at Poseidon Personal Care Home. The lawsuit alleges her daughter told the care home to contact her mother's renal specialist, but says that never happened. The lawsuit says Ozubuko suffered pressure wounds and chronic pain. It says she also had several infections that were treated poorly or not at all, leading to necrotic tissue. The allegations in the lawsuit have not been tested in court. Defendants Rivera and Extendicare did not respond to requests for comment by deadline. And the days of earning air miles at Manitoba liquor marts are numbered. Liquor and Lottery says its stores will stop offering reward miles on purchases on June 1st. The Crown Corporation says it is now exploring what other loyalty programs are available and whether they would be a good fit. Peter Soika is founder of Rewards Canada and an expert on national loyalty points programs.
So I'll be curious to see what Manitoba does. I think some jurisdictions have even gone with their they create their own loyalty program, which nowadays it's very easy to create your own loyalty program.
Air miles have been offered at Manitoba Liquor Mart locations since 1998. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Look at this snow, Heather Wells.
Oh, my goodness. It's so
depressing.
It's kind of like a kick, right? Do you feel it?
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, I feel the kick. Downtown right now, we've got outside our studio windows, all of Portage Ave is covered. All the trees are now covered in white. And yeah, they're going to be shoveling in lots of parts of Manitoba. Our overhead shot, if you're watching the show right now, by the way, is just the camera lens is already getting covered by the snow because of the squalls and, everything's swirling around out there. Let's start with school cancellations, post-news here, and then we'll get into highways, and then we'll round it out with our forecast. We're kind of swapping things around a bit today. Due to weather and road conditions, schools are closed in Lorg Selkirk School Division, and staff also not expected to report today. Also closed Interlake School Division, Mountain View School Division. Schools and buses are all canceled in Evergreen School Division. St. River is closed. Prairie Rose School Division's closed. Red River Valley School Division's closed. In Swan Valley School Division, school is on, but there's no school buses. In the DSFM, École Aurel-le-Moine, these are all of the schools I'm about to say are closed, all of them. So Aurel-le-Moine, Jour-de-Plain, Saint-Georges, Lagimodier, Pointe-de-Chêne, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Saint-Joachim, as well as École Réal Bérard over in Saint-Pierre-Joly. So all of those schools are closed today. Highways that are closed today is also a pretty long list, Corey Funk.
Yes, so all the highways around Dauphin are closed this morning. So that means Highway 5 from Oka River to Grandview, Highway 10 from the north entrance of Riding Mountain National Park to Pine River, Highway 20 from Oka River to Fork River, as well as Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin in the far west there of the province. I did get a call from Tim, who was coming into Winnipeg. He was coming through Selkirk on Highway 59 there. He said it's just really poor conditions out there. If you don't have to drive, don't. And we're watching those conditions right out the window here in Winnipeg deteriorate quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the show today we have a longer list of highway closures. The perimeter highway is still open right now, but it is being reported as covered. So I would love to get some updates from what people are seeing out there, whether you're on the perimeter or any other highway here in the province, because it's looking potentially a little bit treacherous out there, at least visibility-wise. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
So the forecast, causing all the mess, Mr. Abbey. What's up?
Yes, Marcy, a line of very heavy snow. We're already noticing and feeling the impact as it moves through. This is more like a fast-moving system that's going to be really, really dumping, a significant amount of snow on the ground. We're talking about as fast as 5 centimeters in 1 hour. And we started noticing this inside the 6 o'clock hour. So this is how fast the roads have changed. And if you go towards the western part of the province, towards Dauphin, Swan River, and even Arborg, we're expecting additional 5 to 15 centimeters of heavy snow to dump in that part of the province once the system comes through. So if you're around the Riding Mountain area, the roads will not be convenient for you. So if you don't have business on the road, please delay your commute. And also expect visibility to drop to zero in the southern part of the province with this rapid accumulation. For Winnipeg right now, heavy snow already falling in the city. We're expecting about 5 centimeters, followed by mainly cloudy skies. We do have a good chance of light snow later in the day. We're currently around 0 at the Forks and at the airport. Breezy conditions. Highs will hover around 2 degrees today. The Pembina Valley region, we have snow there, 1 degree there. Brandon is currently at -1. Dauphin -4. Gimli -2. Most of the regions will see highs close to 2 degrees. While up north, the Power Flin Flin, we're looking at temperatures between -7 and -9. Thompson, Linley, Gillam, we're looking at temperatures between -13 and -18, warming up to 3 degrees later. While for Tudula Lake, -22 at this time, expecting some sunshine very soon. Churchill and the York region, we're looking at temperatures around -23. And the wind chill is still holding things down in Churchill. It feels like -36 there while we're dealing with the snow down here. So it's a mixed bag today. Take it easy out there. Be safe on the road.
I
know, Marcy.
I didn't know what sound effect to make, but yeah, there. That's all I got for you, Manitoba. Let's get into what's happening in business news this morning. Hi there, Crystal Lee Ramlakan.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So obviously yesterday everybody was watching this deadline at 8 o'clock last night with the U.S. president and with what was happening with Iran. How are markets reacting now to the U.S. and Iran agreeing to this 2-week ceasefire that includes the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, global shares are surging today and oil prices are plunging. So oil is down to below $100 per barrel. And the drop reverses some of the rise in prices following the start of the war, which had effectively blocked passage through the strait, which is a crucial route for global supply. But analysts say the mood is one of cautious optimism. The ceasefire is only 2 weeks long, and markets will be watching closely to see whether shipping through the Strait of Hormuz normalizes as promised, and whether the fragile truce can pave the way for a more durable peace agreement. So Canada's stock index finished slightly higher yesterday after losses earlier in the day. The Dow Jones closed down, the Nasdaq was up, and this morning U.S. stock futures have jumped.
Let's move to trade and talk trade. The U.S.'s trade rep says it's unlikely that the deadline for the review of the free trade deal between Canada and the U.S. will be met. So obviously lots of consequences here. What are the details of what he said?
Yes, so U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer says it's unlikely the U.S. administration will settle all of its trade issues with Canada and Mexico by that July 1st deadline, but he does believe the countries are on track to resolve many of them, and he also expects the negotiations will result in separate agreements and arrangements with Canada and Mexico built on top of the existing trilateral agreement. So he made these comments during a fireside chat at the Hudson Institute, a Washington, D.C. based think tank yesterday. Now, the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement, known as CUSMA, is up for review this summer. And on July 1st, the countries can agree to renew the deal for 16 years. If they don't, they begin a process of annual reviews that continue for 10 years. And any of the three partners can also withdraw from the agreement with 6 months' notice. So a lot up in the air there. Now, Greer has signaled for weeks that negotiations with Mexico are moving faster than they are with Canada. And Greer says there are some provisions within CUSMA that function well, but that the U.S. does not want to change or get rid of. But he says there are other elements that are under review. So recently, his office released an annual list of trade irritants with mentions of Canada when it comes to things like liquor, supply management, buy Canadian policies, and the Online Streaming Act. Now, Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc has said nothing on that list was particularly surprising to Canada, and he has insisted talks between the two countries are progressing.
And finally, on your report today, why are some brands posting old pictures and campaigns of Canadian actor Paul Anthony Kelly?
Yes. So Kelly has been getting a lot of attention for his role as John F. Kennedy Jr. in the recent series Love Story. Have you watched any, Marcy, or seen any clips?
No, I've seen clips because I've seen the buzz. I mean, it's everywhere right now.
Yes, very popular. And so retailers are resurfacing his old photos from when he was a prolific catalog model. So retailers from LL Bean to Kohl's are really milking this moment. A TikTok post from LL Bean is captioned, "We knew him when." From the catalog to the screen, it's nice to see a familiar face, and shows Kelly in the brand's signature outdoor gear. And Kohl's put together an Instagram post of photos of Kelly modeling its shirts. Now, it isn't unusual for brands to capitalize on TV or movie cameos, and the hit FX series provides opportunities for many brands that were popular in the 90s, such as J. Crew and Calvin Klein. And Kelly, who has modeled for many popular brands, has given them plenty of material to work with. So he worked for years in relative obscurity in fashion before landing his star-making role. Now, it isn't clear what effect the marketing push is having on sales, but Kohl says its social media efforts are seeing stronger than usual engagement. And Calvin Klein, where Carolyn Bessette Kennedy worked before marrying JFK Jr., has a 90s edit on its website showcasing minimalist looks from the era. And this 90s fashion has been super popular over social media and in fashion right now.
Is that where all of those, what were you like in the 90s memes are coming from, all those things?
I think so,
yeah.
Yes. I think they go, what does it say, like, mom or dad, like, what were you like in the 90s or something like that?
I had hair that was dyed bright red, and I had these long bangs, and my hair was shaved up the back. Yeah.
Oh,
not my best look. Really dark
honest,
lipstick, really dark, yeah.
I want to see one of those for me, Marcy.
Right? I know. The 90s were a thing. They were pretty intense. All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystalie Ramlakan with our business news. And if you want to see her, you can watch her on Zoom every morning on our show here live. Well, look at the snow. We've got a snow squall warning because it's coming down so fast. It's mixing in the air and it's making visibility challenging, especially on the highways. That is where highways are even open. Lots of snow falling to Westman and through central Manitoba, 5 to 15 centimeters. In Winnipeg, we're expecting probably about 5. It's coming down fast. We have highway closures, Highway 5, 10, 20, 83, portions of which. Check 511 before you go out. And here's the big list that Heather updated literally 3 times during the business news. So school divisions are calling us left, right, and center. They're closing closing. So due to the weather and the road conditions, here's the list now. Lord Selkirk School Division closed. St. Rivers School Division is closed. Lakeshore, Prairie Rose, Interlake, Mountain View, Red River Valley, Evergreen. Now, Swan Valley School Division school is on, but there's no buses running there. And then in the DSFM, we have École Aurel-Lemoine, Jour-de-Plain, Saint-Georges, Lage-Maudier, Pointe-de-Chêne, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Saint-Joachim, as well as École Réal Bérard. All closed. And Corey's on the phone, so maybe there's going to be more with this nasty spring storm that's made its way into our province. It is right now 6:47 a.m. and next on the show, a Canadian woman says she plans to keep fighting for her right to stay in the United States. Her name is Tanya Warner. She's originally from Penticton, BC. She and her 7-year-old daughter, Isla, were held in an ICE facility for nearly 3 weeks. They were released on Thursday on bond, and Warner is still wearing an ankle monitor. Warner insists she's living and working in Texas legally. She says everyone she met in custody is in a similar situation, and she spoke with CBC about the day she was taken into custody.
You know, we were at a baby shower, and our day went from being wonderful to absolute hell within minutes. Being detained by CBP is horrific, I can tell you that. My daughter was subject to neglect and abuse based on the amount of time that we were in there, and she developed a very bad rash on her body. So alongside of dealing with the stress of being detained and the treatment that we received, I was also incredibly concerned for my daughter's welfare and well-being at the same time. Imploring with the medical staff in both establishments, we were dismissed over and over and over. And we're still detained because I have an ankle monitor, which is alternative detention. We're still not out of the hands of ICE.
How is Ayla,
Sure.
your daughter?
She seems to be doing okay. I don't think at 7 years old, they really understand the weight of what's happening. She had lots of kids to play with in Dili. And you're going to have to excuse me because the people in there were just so lovely.
The detainees, you mean?
Yeah, it was really hard to say goodbye and leave them behind. You know, so she did have really beautiful people in there to play with. There were no criminals there. And you'll have to excuse me. You know, like I say, it's a kind of an emotional roller coaster at this stage. And it was a sensory deprivation chamber. There was no light in or out under fluorescent lights for 5 days, and we slept on mats on concrete floors, and they gave us space blankets. It's a 48-hour holding facility. They held us for 5 days. I, as a Canadian citizen, had no idea that this could happen to me based on our shared heritage, my American heritage. I had no idea that this was something that could happen to me. I thought that they were detaining criminals and people that were sneaking across the Rio Grande. That was the idea that I had in my mind. At this stage with this administration, they don't discriminate anyone. And they treated my daughter and I like a sideshow and consistently express how excited they were to have Canadians and that they'd never gotten Canadians before. I am concerned about retaliation, but at this stage, being a Canadian with privilege, I believe that it's my duty to share no matter what the outcome, because so many of the people that come from other countries are discriminated and their voices aren't heard.
So that was Tanya Warner speaking with CBC about being detained in a facility run by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. She maintains she and Isla, her daughter, have been living in the U.S. legally for 5 years after moving to Texas to be with her husband, Edward Warner, who's a U.S. citizen. They moved from BC. She says she was in the midst of the process to get a green card. It is right now 9 minutes to 7 o'clock on 89.3. And of course, at the top of the clock, we're going to hear more about national and international news. The world continues to watch what happens next now that the U.S. and Iran have agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. This temporary ceasefire was brokered by Pakistan, acting as a mediator between the warring countries. Iran's Supreme National Security Council confirms it accepted the ceasefire proposal. Its foreign minister said the country's armed forces would facilitate safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz for 2 weeks. Anne Fitzgerald here to talk about what we know and what we're still asking. She's director of Balsillie School of International Affairs, a professor of international security at Wilfrid Laurier University, and adjunct professor at University of Waterloo. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do we know yet, Anne, if when Iran is saying, they're going to facilitate safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz for these 2 weeks, does that mean it's open? Does that mean they're going to collect a toll? Like, how much detail do we have?
Well, there's a lot of missing detail in what we know. We certainly know two things: that Iran is allowing for the passage of vessels in the Straits of Hormuz within technical limitations. So we don't know what those technical limitations are, if there's going to be a toll charged, if so, what the toll will be. We also know that what has been agreed is a pause on any further attacks on military or civilian infrastructure by Israel and the United States on Iran. So this is what we know. Lastly, we know that it's a 2-week window, and we know that the President of the United States has worked with this kind of time frame in the past. But there is still much detail to emerge. We're also hearing that President Macron of France has offered to lead a coalition of 15 nations to help from a defensive position only secure the maritime space and to help with the passage of vessels through the straits.
Given the extreme threats that Trump leveled at Iran, to say the least, some are calling what he wrote genocidal for obvious reasons when you read those remarks over the last 2 days, especially yesterday's. What do you make of the way events have unfolded here?
Yeah, well, I think those threats were very extreme, and under international humanitarian law, civilian infrastructure is protected unless they become lawful military objectives. So there's been a lot of concern raised by UN and legal experts, but effectively that pushed the conflict to a brink where something had to happen. And, now both sides are claiming victory, which is always a sign that an agreement is shaky and unstable. And this is really not a peace. It's a narrow off-ramp from a much larger war. And whether it becomes something more durable depends on whether the parties now choose diplomacy over humiliation.
How key was Pakistan in all of this, acting as a mediator?
Yeah, it played a key role, and there aren't too many countries that could have played the role that Pakistan did. It has a long-standing security and military cooperation relationship with the United States. It also shares miles of border with Iran through Baluchistan, and so it had a deep interest in this conflict not spilling over into a wider regional dimension. It also proved that its style of shuttle diplomacy, agreement on the points and going back and forth and being transparent about the points that were agreed, was an effective form of diplomacy. But at the end of the day, not many points have been agreed on. I think President Trump wanted a perceived win. He wanted an announcement last night that he could claim was a victory to the U.S. when, in fact, it was a strategic loss to the U.S. based on the detail, based on the fact that Iran continues to control the straits. And let's not forget, they have fought for freedom of navigation amongst other countries since 1979. And this has been given up now. And it hasn't been an issue for 47 years of tension between the U.S. and Iran. But in addition to giving them a possible finance channel to charge tolls in the straits, Iran could be left with developing its nuclear stockpile. So it's a loss to the U.S. strategically.
And thank you very much for being on. I always appreciate your analysis.
Thanks for having me.
So World Report's up. We'll hear more about what's transpired since this, happened last night, or I should say did not happen last night, maybe, but about the ceasefire on World Report. That was Anne Fitzgerald, director of the Balsillie School of International Affairs. We reached her this morning in Waterloo. She is also a professor of international security at Wilfrid Laurier University. It is time to tell you what's happening here in Manitoba. So we have a lot of issues going on. So first of all, a change in the weather. So the snow squall warning has now ended for Winnipeg. just like that. And this tells you how fast the system was. All this started really around probably 5:30. Between 5:30 and now, it just turned from like being nothing on the streets of Winnipeg to this dump of snow. The trees are white. There's still some snow hanging around. And now it's sort of moved on. Fast-moving system. They said we were going to get 5 centimeters in an hour. It is worse in central and western Manitoba with lots of snow on the way. We have problems with highways. So here's what's closed. Highway 5, Oka River to Grandview. Highway 10 from the north entrance to Riding Mountain National Park to Pine River. Highway 20, Oka River to Fork River. And Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin, which is a busy route. All of those are closed this morning and maybe even more. So check 511 before you go. In the city of Winnipeg, Avram called the commuter line. He said there's a house on fire on Salter just north of Redwood. Salter's closed both ways. Crews are on scene. Find an alternate route. 788-3093. So that's your traffic report. In addition to this snow coming down that's going to continue, I will mention that in Winnipeg, we are expecting some freezing rain this morning later possible and a high of 2 degrees. Light snow and blowing snow continues right now. Brandon's misty. Up in Thompson, partly cloudy, and it's going to be sunny and cold for you in the north. Here are our school cancellations because of the weather. The list is long. So Lord Selkirk School Division, St. River School Division also closed. Hanover, Lakeshore, Prairie Rose, Interlake, Mountain View, Red River, Evergreen. Swan Valley School Division is closed. So we had an early morning report that they were going to try to have school on, no buses, but they're closed entirely. Swan Valley School Division is closed. And then there is schools in the DSFM closed. Aurel-le-Mont, Jour-de-Plain, Saint-Georges, Lagimodier, Pointe-de-Chêne, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Saint-Joachim, as well as Riel-Burard. There's your list. Weather is not being kind today. Spring is hanging on to winter in a way like we sometimes see in the month of April. Here we are. Okay, Heather Wells has details on a couple of news stories. In addition, we will have more on these coming up in the next hour of InfoRad. Heather, what are the stories?
Well, Manitoba's Conservative leader is being reprimanded after the legislative speaker says a comment Abhi Khan made was dehumanizing. That comment was directed at the first non-binary member of the legislature in Manitoba's history, the health minister and deputy premier Uzoma Asseguera. And a high school student in western Manitoba says young people in rural communities need more mental health support. Riley Frost, a student at Rivers Collegiate, where in March a student was arrested on charges of planning a violent attack at that school. More news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, we'll have both of those stories and more coming up in the next hour of Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcoussis. Take it easy out there. Going to be a slow start to the day in Manitoba. You're listening to CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. World Report is next.
On the Current. I'm Dave Seglins. 3 federal by-elections could bring Mark Carney's government a majority, and none had a result as knife edge in the last election as one in Quebec with a 1-vote difference.
Of course, this expression has been used many times before. It's a roller coaster.
We'll take you to Terrebonne coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. The 2-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran is facing an immediate and violent test. Just hours after the deal was reached to suspend the war, fresh drone and missile strikes are being reported across the Persian Gulf. While U.S. President Donald Trump has called off a massive bombing campaign and both sides have agreed to further negotiations, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is warning Washington's patience is limited.
If the Iranians are willing, in good faith, to work with us, I think we can make an agreement. If they're going to lie, if they're going to cheat, if they're going to try to prevent even the fragile truce that we've set up from taking place, then they're not going to be happy.
Megan Williams joins us from Dubai. Megan, is this ceasefire already falling apart?
Both militaries remain on high alert, but there are already cracks in the deal. Kuwait's military says that it's been intercepting a wave of Iranian drones since 8 o'clock this morning. Some have targeted oil facilities and power stations. There has been major damage to infrastructure. And here in the UAE, air defenses have also been dealing with missile threats. You know, the Strait of Hormuz is pretty quiet. There have been no commercial commercial vessels that have been cleared to pass it so far. Ship owners are watching carefully. Apparently, no one wants to be the first through.
What are the terms of the ceasefire deal as it was supposed to play out?
It's a 14-day double-sided pause. So both sides, in theory anyway, have halted bombing and attacks. Iran has agreed to the immediate safe reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. In return, Trump has accepted Iran's 10-point proposal as, in his words, a workable basis for negotiation. And Iran's demands are sweeping. They want to lift all the sanctions. They want the withdrawal of U.S. troops from the region, and they want the recognition of nuclear enrichment rights. Now, on Friday, all of this is going to be discussed at high-level talks in Islamabad. But Trump, for now, is calling this a win. Iran's foreign minister was equally clear. He says this is a ceasefire. It's not the end of a war. This is the start of a very complicated negotiation.
That is Megan Williams in Dubai. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks.
Israel is insisting the ceasefire with Iran does not apply in Lebanon. Its military says it has attacked Hezbollah command centers and military infrastructure across Beirut this morning. Lebanon's foreign ministry says it wants to negotiate with Israel directly. Crystal Gamansing has more from London.
Lebanese health officials say at least 8 people were killed and more than 20 wounded in an overnight attack. A cafe in the coastal city of Sidon was hit by an Israeli airstrike. Abdul Rahman Bizri, a member of the Lebanese parliament, visited the strike site in Sidon while it was still dark, describing it as a massacre, saying the hope is that Lebanon will be a part of the negotiations. Another coastal city, Tyre, was also hit. An evacuation notice was issued for it by Israeli officials early Wednesday morning. Residents were told to move north of the Zerani River. French President Emmanuel Macron says the situation in Lebanon is critical. He's been advocating for de-escalation and says the parties need to respect the ceasefire fully. In Lebanon, more than 1,500 people have been killed since March 2nd. The latest round of hostilities erupted when Hezbollah fired on Israel in response for the war in Iran. Citing sources close to Hezbollah, the Reuters news agency says the Iran-backed militia halted its attacks early Wednesday as a part of the ceasefire, but Israel does not agree. Government officials previously stated for the security of Israelis living near the border, Lebanese territory in the south would be seized and cleared, utilizing ground forces and air operations. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
The leader of Manitoba's Conservative Party is being reprimanded for a comment made in the legislature. It was directed at the first non-binary MLA in Manitoba's history. The speaker says it was dehumanizing. As Ian Fraze reports, Tory leader Abe Khan insists he didn't mean any harm.
Heckling in Manitoba's legislature. The person you hear next, Tory leader Abe Khan.
School divisions. We're grateful for our partnership with the superintendent from...
Khan's recent comment was directed to NDP Health Minister Yozoma Asaguera, who identifies as non-binary. In the crosstalk, Khan is heard saying, "You are an awful human being, whatever you are." The audio recording, confirmed and released Tuesday by Speaker Tom Lindsay.
I was shocked and appalled to hear such dehumanizing comment had in fact been made in this chamber.
Asaguera says Khan's comment isn't appropriate for an elected official.
Someone could look at me across the aisle and levy a statement against me that was not only disgusting and dehumanizing and derogatory and transphobic, it was in fact dangerous.
But Khan denies spewing hate.
I would not, and I did not attack Minister Asaguera on the basis of their gender identity.
He says his comments are being taken in partial context, and that he was calling on the NDP member to repeat whatever they were saying outside the legislature. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Saskatchewan is about to provide much-needed clarity about who is supposed to investigate when a person is accused of practicing medicine without a license. It comes after a CBC report on a controversial health centre in Moose Jaw. As Alexander Kwan tells us, the province wants things done differently at the College of Physicians and Surgeons.
Looking at how we can enhance the ability of the CPSS to do what they need to do.
Saskatchewan Health Minister Jeremy Cockrell remains tight-lipped on specifics, but there are big changes planned for the province's College of Physicians and Surgeons, including the power to investigate the unlawful practice of medicine.
There needed to be information clarity and role clarity.
It's a change being welcomed by Dan Florizone, a former Deputy Minister of Health, who said there's long been tension between Saskatchewan's Ministry of Health and the college.
It isn't so much that there is an agreement that there's legislation and that it's against the law to practice without a license to practice medicine. It's who is in the role of investigating that.
The changes come after the college and the health minister disagreed about who could investigate a controversial health centre, with the college insisting it lacked the authority. The private facility is unregulated and run by Dan Goodnow, who is not a medical doctor but does have a PhD in medical science.
Stopping the progression of ALS actually isn't that hard.
The centre has claimed a 100% success rate in halting and reversing the progress of the degenerative disease ALS. Goodnow says his facility does not provide medical treatment, and he's filed a lawsuit against CBC for reporting on the experience of former patients of the centre. The legislation is expected to be introduced in the coming weeks. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Newfoundland and Labrador is seeing a spike in a rare muscle injury that can be life-threatening. Health officials are warning people about the risk of extreme workouts. Our health reporter, Christine Burak, has what you need to know to protect yourself.
Thinking back, I felt like I was dying.
At 23, Kira Fancy never imagined a spin class could do so much damage.
When I went to get off the bike, somebody had to come and unclip my feet from the pedals, and I fell to the floor.
She pushed through leg pain for days before being hospitalized in St. John's with rhabdomyolysis, or rhabdo, a rare condition where damaged muscle tissue releases proteins into the blood, which can cause kidney failure. Health officials in Newfoundland say they're seeing an unusually high number of cases among young women.
They describe the pain as being severe.
Dr. Richard Barter is a chief of emergency medicine in the Eastern Urban Zone. It's now seen 20 cases of rhabdo over 6 months, nearly double the number often seen in a year. Barter says most did intense workouts.
Maybe people aren't easing into it. And I think people are challenging themselves on social media as well.
So anytime one would be able to see tea-colored urine or dark urine, you really should go to the emergency department.
Dr. Mark Tarnopolsky, a professor at McMaster University, has experienced rhabdo himself.
The people who run into more problems are those who exercise, take time off, and then go back and try and push themselves a little too hard.
Tarnopolsky says no one should avoid exercise, but listen to your body. His advice for moderate muscle soreness: avoid taking anti-inflammatory drugs like Advil, which can strain the kidneys. Instead, drink lots of water. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Well, Mother Nature's hammering us today, quite frankly. We've had a swift-moving system through Winnipeg here. It's still affecting much of Manitoba. Snow squalls, closed highways, tons of schools and divisions closed. Those full list and details coming up in just a moment. Welcome to Wednesday, everyone. It is April the 8th. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and you are listening to CBC's Information Radio, live from downtown Winnipeg. Snow-covered Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. Well, this hour on the program, we're going to talk to CBC Brandon reporter Chelsea Kemp about a recent arrest of a Rivers youth accused of planning a violent attack at their school. Parents have shared with Chelsea and CBC that this was not the first time they've had concerns about the teen. So stay tuned for that special report in a moment. Also this hour on the program, political studies professor Paul Thomas is going to talk to us about decorum in the Ledge. This after the NDP say transphobic comments were hurled at one of their ministers by the leader of the opposition, Tories. And so we're going to hear more about what happened in that case. We also are going to hear a little bit more about from Manitoba Legislative Speaker Tom Lindsay, who said in part, quote, "I'm deeply disappointed at the atrocious state of decorum in the House last week," end quote. And that was part of his report as he was looking at what was said. So stay tuned. That's all coming up. Let's get into what's happening in headlines otherwise. Heather Wells has other stories to update for us. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg nonprofit says it is expecting more Somalis to cross the border into Manitoba as the weather warms up. Abdikhair Ahmed at the Resilia Community Wellness Centre estimates more than 100 Somalis came to the province over the winter, fleeing an immigration crackdown in Minnesota. A new border reform bill in Canada makes it harder for people to claim asylum if they are coming from the U.S. And a Winnipeg woman is suing the care home where her mother was a resident before she died in 2024. She alleges the elderly woman was neglected before dying of complications from an infection that spread to her bones. We'll hear that story coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, it's competing lists here. I have a list of school closures. Corey's got highways and Abby's got weather. Why don't you start, Abby?
Well, Marcy, that yellow snow squall warning for the Red River Valley has ended. Boy, oh boy, that line of very heavy snow really swept across the region pretty fast between 6 o'clock and now. We're looking on the ground. We should be seeing about 2 to 5 centimeters of snow, depending on where you are. But just a heads up, this will definitely cause difficult travels as the rush hour picks up. But for folks in the Steinbach and Selkirk area and even towards Winkler this morning, things will definitely get a bit messy because you have a bunch of pileup in that part of the province. Then we go further west. Yellow level snowfall warning continues for the Parkland and into the Interlake region. Heavy snow still hammering that part of the province, and that would be the story for most of the day. We're looking at additional 5 to 15 centimeters expected on top of what fell last night. Winnipeg right now, -1, snow still falling, blowing in some areas. We warm up to 2 degrees later, Marcy.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Into what's closed here for school cancellations and divisions. The following divisions are completely closed. Lord Selkirk, Seine River, Hanover, Lakeshore, Prairie Rose, Interlake, Mountain View, Red River Valley, Evergreen, and Swan Valley, all closed. In the DSFM, the following schools are closed today: Gabriel Roy, Aurel-le-Moin, Jour-de-Plain, Saint-Georges, Lage-Maudier, Pointe-de-Chêne, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, as well as Saint-Joachim, Saint-Joachim, see? Sometimes I still say it wrong. Saint-Joachim, as well as École Réal Bérard in Saint-Pierre-Joly. If you're driving, it's not pretty out there. Corey?
No, I'll start with the highways, and there is a couple of issues here in the city as well. But those highways, all the highways around Dauphin, closed right now. So that's Highway 5 from Oak River to Grandview, Highway 10 from the north entrance of Riding Mountain National Park to Pine River, Highway 20 from Oak River to Fork River. Also, in the far west of the province, Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin, closed right now. That's Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin, closed because of those poor conditions. Here in the cities, two big issues to keep an eye out for. First, Salter closed both ways because of a fire right near the intersection of Salter and Redwood, just north of Salter there. Oh, sorry, just north of Redwood. There's a house fire. Crews are on scene, and they have Salter closed both ways. Got 2 calls about that from both Avram and Julie. As well, Tyler just called the commuter line to say southbound Kenniston at Waverly, there seems to be a bus that got in some sort of fender bender, and it has most of the road blocks. He says you can kind of squeeze around on the far right, but other than that, though, you might see some backup starting southbound Kenniston at Waverly, but you can kind of squeeze around there. If you see anything else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, up next on CBC, multiple parents who live in Rivers, Manitoba, this is just north of Brandon, have come forward alleging a 14-year-old boy who was charged last month in connection to planning a school attack had a history of threatening teens, in some cases holding multiple youths at knife point. The CBC's Chelsea Kemp, who is usually stationed in Brandon, but she's in our Winnipeg studio this morning, is here with our story. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy, how are you?
I'm well. So these are serious allegations here. You've reported on this story the day it broke. I know the day the teen was arrested. Since then, you've been in Rivers talking to parents and other students. Can you tell us more about what you're hearing, what they're telling you?
So I've spoken with 3 parents who live in Rivers and have kids in the community. And in each case, we've agreed to protect their identities because they're, a little concerned about their kids, concerned about their safety. We all talked independently, and they all had similar stories. All three allege the accused youth threatened their kids with a knife. And in one case, that RCMP became involved months before he was arrested. Two of the three parents I talked to indicated RCMP were aware of the youth's alleged behavior in the months leading up to his arrest.
It's sad, we River is a small community. We look out for everybody's kids. And so a lot of us took him under our wing, and to know how close we were to danger is mind-boggling.
So you asked RCMP about all of this, I understand. What did you get back from them?
I did reach out to RCMP trying to confirm what I'm hearing, but they told me they can't really tell me anything. They can't comment, they can't confirm, and that's because this case involves a youth, and that we do what we can within the law system to protect their identities. That also means the name of the youth can't be published under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. And it's also important that we keep in mind these allegations against the teen have not been proven in court.
So can you give us some background on the story, Chelsea, for those that might not have been following along, that exactly what we do know happened here?
So this all started about mid-month last month in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. RCMP were alerted by international police agencies Interpol and the FBI that a 15-year-old in Nova Scotia and the 14-year-old in Rivers were talking online. And what they were talking about was mounting attacks at their local schools, Parkview Education Centre in Nova Scotia and Rivers Collegiate in Rivers. And that school has fewer than 150 students in grades 7 through 12. And the investigators allege the teens were planning simultaneous attacks. And now Manitoba RCMP say the alleged conversation started mid-February with the teen from Rivers actively discussing and planning to harm other students at Rivers Collegiate. And then, on March 16th, RCMP pulled over a school bus and arrested the Rivers teen. They also seized his phone and electronic devices. They do say he was unarmed at the time, though. Here's Corporal Melanie Roussel with RCMP speaking to reporters in Winnipeg back then.
It was the safest way for us to take him in custody prior to him attending school. We had received information prior that he was already on the school bus. We wish we could have arrested him at his residence, but that didn't happen. So arresting him on the school bus was the safest and quickest way to put him in custody.
And police also searched 2 properties associated with the accused, and they seized more electronic stuff, along with 2 firearms that were owned by a relative.
So that was Corporal Russell back there for RCMP speaking March 18th. That clip, by the way, as Chelsea mentioned. So the parents you spoke with recently here, did they give you a sense of how people in the community are now dealing with all of this?
Well, it's safe to say that they're a little on edge. They want the accused youth to get the help he needs, but they also have a lot of questions about what comes next.
I think we really need to come together as a community and figure out ways to prevent this. Like I said, isolation is partly what caused this. We, rural communities, I'm sure all across Canada are struggling, right? There's not enough supports for our adults, and there's definitely not enough supports for our kids.
And a third parent I spoke with, they really emphasized how this is a reminder to parents to just check in with your kiddos and see how they're doing, see how they're using the internet, and see who they're talking to on social media.
What about the kids in the school? What are they saying? What did you hear from them?
So I did speak with a student from River Collegiate named Riley Frost. He's 16. He says him and his friends are feeling kind of adrift, and they want more information and mental health support. For Frost, it is a scary situation, of course. And again, he has the same message, check in with your kids when you're a parent. He's really hoping this is a wake-up call to build support in rural communities and ensure everyone can get the help they need.
I think that parents need to speak to their kids and connect them with professionals if they are getting bullied, because that is a thing that can be detrimental to your mental health. But I think there also should be supports for all kids and whatnot.
So when it comes to the investigation, Chelsea, what do we understand about what's next?
And so for now, the Rivers youth has been charged with uttering threats, but RCMP say he may face more additional charges as the investigation continues. He's expected to be in a Brandon court later this month. The 15-year-old in Nova Scotia is accused of conspiring with the Rivers youth. They had a court appearance on March 23rd, and they're going to be in jail until a bail hearing in April.
All right, Chelsea, thank you very much for coming in this morning with this update on the story. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Marcy. And as a reminder to people, if you want to read or find out more about this story or what else is going on in Westman, we also have a new Manitoba page, and you can look it up, Southwestern Manitoba, and it's all about us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chelsea's saying all about us because she's normally based in Brandon. We're lucky she drove in last night. It sure is snowy this morning, but she's been here with live reporting in our CBC studio in downtown Winnipeg. If you want to read more about that page, as she mentioned, Southwestern Manitoba page, you can find the links through our CBC Manitoba website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
In this corner, the WWE. Oh, yeah! In the far corner, UFC. Could he finish him here? And standing in the middle, a man named Tex Rickard, who wrote the playbook on fight promotion back in the 1920s. Selling violence, marketing combat sports on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
7:23 a.m. is the time right now. If you want to go to our website, you'll find also the full list of school division closures for today. It is long, and it is because of the weather. We continue to have issues with snow. So we have yellow warning when it comes to snowfall, and that is for around Selkirk, Dauphin, Riding Mountain Park, McCurry through Duck Mountain, Waterhen. We're talking a further 5 to 15 centimeters of snow coming down over already what's happened already. Snow squalls as well are an issue. That has ended for Winnipeg, these warnings. However, in a lot of other areas in the province, that snow is whipping around. We had a very quick 5 centimeters come down here. We do have a high of 2 degrees, so a lot of this white stuff downtown is going to melt off, I suspect, through the day. However, we still have this risk of freezing rain in the forecast and a 60% chance of more light snow this afternoon. So we are going to have a challenging day. It's going to be gusty winds today as well, just all in all, not that nice. Right now, it's -1 in Winnipeg, and Brandon misty -1, and Thompson partly cloudy -13. Before you head out, check the highways. A lot of them are closed. Corey's here with a bit of a traffic update. Good morning.
Yeah, just got a call from Alex on the commuter line. The city just posted a picture of this too. Westbound Broadway, right at Main, is blocked entirely right now. There's been a collision there. A fire truck is actually on scene and has blocked the entirety of westbound Broadway. So you can't actually turn if you're heading on northbound Main. You want to turn on Broadway, you can't turn on westbound Broadway at all right now. So that's going to cause some issues for folks on this morning. Other issues to keep in mind: Salter, been still getting lots of calls. So thanks for those updates from everyone who's been calling. Salter still closed entirely right now at Redwood because of a fire in the area that's just north of Redwood on Salter there, house fire. Crews are on scene. They have it entirely blocked off. Salter as well. Got a call from Tyler, southbound Keniston at Waverly. There's a bus, looks like it got some kind of fender bender, blocking most of southbound Keniston at Waverly. You can kind of squeeze around, apparently, if you go really, really slow on the far right. So those issues going on right now. Highway closures, all the highways around Dauphin closed right now because of poor conditions. Highway 83 as well from Russell to Roblin also closed right now due to poor conditions. You can give me a call if you see anything else. That number to call, love getting updates, even if it's something I've already said. I want to know if it's still happening. 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
Paul McGowan's in now with Morning Sports. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
Well, I was kind of lamenting that I didn't get to watch this game last night, but maybe not. The Jays have now lost 6 in a row.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I'll be the first person to say that early season baseball does not matter. It's a season that is twice as long as a hockey season, and so, there's no need to panic about last night's 4-1 loss to the Dodgers, but yeah, I will concede that this team is not much fun to watch right now. The Jays just can't get a hit with runners in scoring position, something that manager John Schneider acknowledges is sort of a matter of luck.
Runners in scoring position is such a weird thing. It ebbs and it flows. I know we were really good last year, so hopefully it turns. That's it. It's a tricky thing. Whether it's bases loaded, nobody out, or first and third, one out, whatever it may be, it's kind of just do your job and move it on to the next guy. That's what we were really good at last year. It's what we, are striving to continue to do, and it's just not happening right now.
Not happening right now, but again, it is early. And Marcy, there is all kinds of early season weirdness going on across baseball. We saw a brawl last night in which the Braves' Jorge Soler got punched with a baseball. We saw a fan in Tampa Bay dive for a foul ball and fully lose his pants. All of which to say that it would not surprise me if the Jays came out today and beat the trousers off of the Dodgers.
Did he have underwear on, I hope?
Marcy, he did not.
Oh, okay. Maybe I will not be Googling the highlights. Thank you for that. There's better news, and I think panted news in basketball. Raptors with a win over Miami last night, right?
Yeah, well, the Miami Heat, for being in 10th place, were only going in 2 games back of the Raptors for 6th in the East. But the Raptors dominate the Heat last night. They win 121-95, and with just 3 games left in the regular season, they now hold a 1-game lead on that final playoff spot in the East. They should be able to hold on to it, but it's been an up and down season. And rookie Colin Murray-Boyles, when talking about the year, sounds genuinely exhausted.
Long season, man. It's hard. It's tough, obviously. This is like, 3 seasons all like balled into one. So definitely tough, but I think helps me for the future, know how to really prepare myself for these type of moments, especially at the end of this season. Definitely eye-opener for sure.
Now, for Colin Murray-Boyles, he's used to the NCAA season, which is considerably shorter, but man, does he sound tired. He makes me feel tired. The long season for the Raptors continues tomorrow night. They've got a rematch with Miami.
And let's finish with what might be the most famous dinner in pro sports.
Well, golf has no shortage of idiosyncrasies, like a fierce aversion to shorts, for example. But one of the better traditions in the sport is the Champions Dinner, where whoever won the Masters last year puts together and pays for a dinner for all of the previous Masters champions. So that dinner was held last night by 2025 champion Rory McIlroy, who did something a little bit different because golfers will typically select a menu that highlights cuisine from their home country. McIlroy went in a different direction.
People keep asking me, why didn't you go more Irish? And I said, because I want to enjoy the dinner as well. So I tried to do a few things that I thought everyone would eat. The club have been amazing. The fun part was getting access to that wonderful wine cellar that they have. And, I'm excited to share those wines with everyone as well.
I think Rory McIlroy and Ireland are officially fighting. He and the rest of the golfers in the field will tee off on Thursday.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thanks, Marcy.
Morning Sports with Paul McGowan. Still ahead in this half hour of the show, we have our medical column. And Dr. Bardwaj is going to be talking about allergies. And I know that it seems early for the season, but the season has changed across this country. So he's going to talk about what is next to come and what new allergies are popping up for folks in Canada. We will mention that there are huge problems out there with the weather. So Corey was just saying this, but if you have any updates, I'll just repeat here. In the city of Winnipeg, westbound Broadway at Main is closed right now. Salter at Redwood's closed both ways. Crews are on scene of a house fire there. Southbound Kenniston at Waverley, there's also an issue there with a bus, and we understand maybe a fender bender, but it's causing us some problems. And then highway closures. Check 511 before you're out. Highway 5, 10, 20, and 83, portions of those are all closed, in addition to more issues with snow cover. So check 511 before you're out. 788-3093 with updates. And your news from Manitoba is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 0, and that snow appears to have tapered off a bit. We're expecting the wind also to ease through the day, and a high today of 2. Well, it looks like winter has returned. Streets and back lanes are covered after a snow squall left an expected 5 centimeters of heavy, wet snow. The warnings do continue for the Interlake, Parkland, and central Manitoba, up to 15 centimeters of snow still possible for those areas, prompting school closures in at least 10 divisions. All this moisture isn't what parts of the Interlake need. Manitoba's Hydrologic Forecast Centre says there is an elevated risk of spring flooding in the Fisher River Basin. Officials say the flood risk is high and could reach similar levels to the spring flood of 2014, which devastated Peguis First Nation. Manitoba's deputy premier says recent comments by opposition leader Abi Khan during question period make them feel unsafe. Khan was quoted as saying, "You are a terrible person, whatever you are," to Uzoma Asseguera. Khan had denied saying the latter part of that comment. Yesterday, the legislature's speaker released audio of the exchange and said Khan, in fact, did speak those words. Asseguera is the first non-binary MLA elected in the province's history. They say they are not the only one impacted by what Abi Khan said.
I've heard from Manitobans who have said that they actually now feel less safe in their own workplaces, because if the Deputy Premier and Minister of Health could be attacked in such a way in their workplace, what does it mean for them?
Khan apologized in the chamber yesterday, later saying the audio only captured a fragment of what he said. A longtime political analyst says Khan's comments carry on a disturbing trend. Paul Thomas is Professor Emeritus of Political Studies at the University of Manitoba. He says what he's seeing during question period is getting worse. Thomas says a lot of the blame rests with party leaders and House leaders.
If they take the initiative and shout at one another and hurl insults at one another and show disrespect and even threats, then that becomes contagious, and the kind of ladder of escalation sets in.
You can hear more from Paul Thomas coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. A high school student in Western Manitoba says young people in rural communities need more mental health support. Riley Frost is a student at Rivers Collegiate, northwest of Brandon. In March, a student there was arrested on charges of planning a violent attack at that school. Frost wishes young people in his area had more resources.
Parents need to speak to their kids and connect them with professionals if they are getting bullied, because that is a thing that can be detrimental to your mental health. But I think there also should be supports for all kids and whatnot.
CBC News spoke with 3 different parents who say the teen who is charged has a history of violent behavior. They all allege the youth threatened their children with a knife. Now, RCMP cannot confirm whether the accused had past interactions with police because he is a youth. The teen's first court appearance is set for later this month. The United States and Iran have reached a temporary 2-week ceasefire. Both sides are claiming victory.
ایران به یک پیروزی عظیم دست پیدا کرده.
Iranian state television says Iran has achieved a great victory, forcing America to accept its plan, which includes the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Lindsay Cole is an anti-war protester in New York. He's relieved President Trump did not follow through on his threat to destroy Iran.
It's nice to hear that an entire civilization is not getting extinguished today, but we have a lot of work left to do, and that's why we're still here, and we're going to keep coming out.
Israel says the temporary ceasefire with Iran does not include Lebanon, where it is fighting against Hezbollah militants. You can hear the latest on this story, as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A Winnipeg refugee advocate says new border laws won't stop migrants fleeing the U.S. Abdikhair Ahmed at the Resilia Community Wellness Center says more than 100 Somalis crossed into Manitoba during the winter. Donald Trump has singled out Somalis, saying he doesn't want them in his country. Ahmed says many are afraid for their lives.
Somalis are resilient people. Having said that, what Trump said and how Trump and his regime targeted the Somali population in Minnesota has really put an anxiety to a different level.
Ottawa recently passed a bill making it harder to make an asylum claim. Ahmed says migrants will still cross the border if they think it's safer than staying in the U.S., and he expects more will come to Manitoba as the weather warms up. A Winnipeg woman is suing the care home where her mother was a resident before she died in 2024. She alleges the elderly woman was neglected before dying of complications from an infection that spread to her bones. Olga Ozubko died less than 2 weeks after she started having trouble breathing at Poseidon Personal Care Home. The lawsuit alleges Ozubko's daughter told the care home to contact her mother's renal specialist, but it says that never happened. The lawsuit says Ozubko suffered pressure wounds and chronic pain. It says she also had several infections that were treated poorly or not at all, leading to necrotic tissue. The allegations of this lawsuit have not been tested in court. Defendants Rivera and Extendicare did not respond to requests for comment by deadline. You can find more news updated throughout your day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, Heather's been helping us out as she always does and running back and forth with this list of school closures. So here's where we're at right now. 7:36 a.m. Wednesday, April 8th. Spring storm moving through quickly. And here is what is closed. We have 11 school divisions closed. The latest is Borderland School Division closed for today. Also, Lord Selkirk, Seine River, Hanover, Lakeshore, Prairie Rose, Interlake, Mountain View, Red River Valley, Evergreen, and Swan Valley, all closed. We have 10 schools closed in the DSFM. They are Gabriel Roy, Aurel-le-Moine, Jour-de-Plain, Saint-Georges, Lagimodière, Pointe-de-Chêne, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, as well as Saint-Joachim and Réal-Berard. Oops, I mentioned those twice, but that's okay. You're all closed. Let's get into the forecast. Then Corey's going to update what's happening out there on the roads.
Yeah, you can hear Corey's voice in the background. They're messy roads. That's what we'll be dealing with because of this heavy snow slum in southern Manitoba this morning. But in the northern part, we see sunshine there. The snow squall warnings have ended for Winnipeg. However, you will still deal with the messy road conditions this morning, and this extends all the way towards Portage-la-Prairie and even more than Steinbach. You will notice the roads are not going to be convenient to be on this morning. Meanwhile, the yellow level snowfall warnings, we still have it in place for the Parkland and Interlake region. Additional 5 to 15 centimeters expected once the system comes through. We should see snow for most of the day. Winnipeg right now, we're looking at temperatures around 0, and that's the condition for most regions in the southern part of the province. While up north, we're enjoying sunshine in the northern regions, Marcy.
It's made a mess of the roads. Corey Funk?
Yeah, let's start here in the city, actually. Lots of issues going on. Just got a call from Margaret. So Bison and Waverly. So when you're going northbound Waverly at Bison, those lights are now flashing red because it appears someone knocked over a traffic standard. There was a collision there. And actually that traffic standard is blocking northbound Waverly at Bison, the right-hand lane. So people are trying to go left to get around that. Those lights are flashing red. So slow going through that intersection. Also, Daniel just called to say the northbound Route 90, right at the perimeter there, right? Kind of as you're going on to that turnoff, try to get on the perimeter. 2 semis are kind of blocking that turnoff on to the north perimeter from northbound Route 90. He said that people are trying to squeeze around, but they kind of seem to be stuck on there. As well, westbound Broadway, right at Main Street, closed entirely right now by a fire truck. There's been a collision there. You can't turn onto westbound Broadway from Main Street. Also, Salter, closed entirely right now just north of Redwood, going both ways. Salter closed because of a house fire in that area as well. And finally here, also heard about southbound Kenaston at Waverly. There's a bus that seemed to get in some kind of fender bender. May still be an issue. It was blocking most of the road. You can kind of squeeze around on the right, says Tyler on the commuter line. Thanks to everyone who called about those issues. And just a reminder, there are highway closures right now going on, mostly in the western part of the province, actually entirely in the western part of the province. All highways around Dauphin closed right now. Highway 5 from Ochre River to Grandview. Highway 10 from the north entrance of Riding Mountain National Park to Pine River. Highway 20 from Ochre River to Fork River. And as well, Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin, closed entirely due to poor conditions. Give me a call if you see anything else. Thanks for all the updates I've been getting so far. 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Done with this, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, we all are. Okay, let's look to something brighter on the horizon, but it also is something that can cause problems. Brighter is Saturday, where in Winnipeg we're looking for sunshine and a high of 10 degrees. Challenges with warm weather and sunshine are, of course, allergies. But 1 in 5 Canadians suffer from seasonal allergies. It doesn't, though, have to mean avoiding the outside once it gets nice. That's our medical column today. Here now is Dr. Raj Bhardwaj.
Good morning, Marcy.
So it does seem a little early to be talking about seasonal allergies, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I wanted to do it earlier this year because a common issue that we see when people are taking medications or doing other things to deal with their allergies, it's not necessarily which meds they take, it's when they start taking them. because most people wait until they get bad symptoms and then they reach for the bottle of antihistamine. That makes sense, right? But the problem with seasonal allergy is that there's actually two phases to the allergy response. There's this early phase when chemicals like histamine are released. That causes the sort of runny nose, itchy sneezing. And then there's this later phase when other immune system things get called to the party. That causes a lot more inflammation, leads to more like congestion and swelling. So if you know what you're allergic to, it's actually best to start doing things, start taking your antihistamines at least a week or two before the season really kicks in. And that way you can reduce both the early histamine phase and the later sort of inflammation phase. So that means thinking about your allergies now, while it's still kind of, the transition between winter and spring.
And am I remembering this correctly, that allergy season is also getting longer?
Yeah, it is, unfortunately, in Canada as well as everywhere else. And climate change is at least partly to blame, as we get higher carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere and lower growing seasons, more frost-free days. There are basically just more plants in more places releasing more pollen. So there was a study by the Environmental Protection Agency in the US, and they looked at ragweed pollen seasons in 11 cities across North America from 1995 to 2015. 10 of the 11 cities had longer pollen seasons over the 2 decades. And the change was bigger in the northerly locations. So like 27 days longer in Saskatoon, 25 days longer in Winnipeg, compared to 21 days longer in Minneapolis, 19 days longer in Fargo. The only place that it was actually a little bit shorter was like 1 day shorter in like South Texas.
Got it. I was giving you the in Winnipeg for 25 days longer just because I personally suffer from allergies. So my personal experience mirrors that. How would people know what they're allergic to, just to visit this?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of ways to know. One is actual formal allergy testing from an allergist or maybe a dermatologist. But the other thing is just to sort of pay attention to when your allergies flare up. So, as the snow first melts, if you're thinking, man, nothing is alive, but I'm getting allergies, snow mold might be a trigger for you. And then into sort of April, early May, tree pollen kind of wakes up. And then into the summer and fall, grass is a more common trigger. And then in the fall, the weeds start making more pollen. So weeds like ragweed, like in that study. So that kicks in and causes more problems for some people. But the problem is that some people are allergic to more than one thing, right? So it sort of feels like, I was just starting to get better and then my allergies flared up again. That might be because different allergens are around, or it might be because your immune system is being exposed more. So we'll talk about that as well.
Okay, what do doctors recommend to keep allergies under control?
Yeah, so basically you can split your strategy up into 3 different things. Okay, so the first 2 are the main ones. And the first one, super important, try to avoid the allergens in the first place. And that does not mean hiding indoors. Remember, your immune system has to be exposed to the allergens before it can start its reaction. So try to reduce how much pollen gets on your skin, in your nose, in your eyes, and how long it stays there. Because the longer it stays there, the more it'll irritate your immune system. So things you can do that will really help that, use nasal rinses every evening, and then take a shower and wash your hair before going to bed. Because then you're getting all the pollen and stuff off of your hair, off of your body, and then changing into, your nighttime clothes so that you're not sleeping in pollen-covered clothing and, your pillowcase isn't getting covered in pollen and stuff like that. So that's a huge strategy, is just avoid how much allergen your immune system sees. Second prong of the strategy is you can take medications to settle down the reaction of your immune system. So the most common one, I think everybody's familiar with, antihistamines. There are sort of 2 giant categories of antihistamines. There's the newer, more common second generation antihistamines, Reactin, Allegra, Claritin. The no-name brands are fine. Those are great. Cetirizine, fexofenadine, loratadine. Those are the main ones that we recommend. We generally tell people to avoid the old-timey first-generation antihistamine, which is Benadryl. Those have been around a lot longer, but doesn't really work as well, doesn't last as long, and it gets into your brain. So it has way more side effects and medication interactions. the other thing is really effective, cortisone nasal sprays for allergy symptoms, and then also antihistamine eye drops. So not the ones that promise to get the red out, but just plain old antihistamine eye drops. You can talk to your doctor or your eye doctor, optometrist about that. Even simple tears drops can really help, again, just by rinsing the pollen off the surface of your eyes. And then the third prong to our allergy strategy is some people, you can actually retrain your immune system not to react so much to allergens, but that is a commitment, to, weekly medications like injections or newer under the tongue medications that can basically teach your immune system not to freak out so much when it sees pollens. But that's only available for certain allergens. So you'd have to talk to your doctor and then probably an allergist about that.
All right, Dr. Bardwaj, thank you.
My pleasure.
That is our medical column for this week with Dr. Raj Bardwaj.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
So we have issues out there because of the weather and the snowy conditions. Check our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba for the list. We have 11 school divisions closed, and in the DSFM, the Franco-Manitoban division, we have 10 schools that are also closed. We have snow squall warnings for parts of the province. It's ended in Winnipeg after that snow came down, but it's whipping around in other places. To the west and through central Manitoba, we're looking at 5 to 15 centimeters. And then besides the snow, it's windy, and in places we could have some freezing rain as well. So just take it easy out there. We will have mild highs today above zero, which will melt a lot of this off, hopefully, across southern Manitoba especially. Highways 511, check before you go. Portions of 5, 10, 20, and 83 are all closed. In this city, lots of problems and a couple of updates here. So Broadway at Main had been completely, westbound Broadway at Main had been completely closed. Now there's a change. So the median lane is now open. The westbound curb lane at Broadway and Main remains blocked. Also, long delays on Highway 1. Michelle called our commuter line and said that westbound into Winnipeg, if you're heading there at Deacon's Corner, it took about 15 minutes to get through that area. So things are just slow this morning. Expect a slow start to your Wednesday. We're all in it. 788-3093. Coming up on the program after 8 o'clock on the show today, our Gen Z panel is back, and the day of hybrid work might be over for some employees in Canada, but should they be those days? We're going to ask our Gen Z panel to weigh in on hybrid work. So that's coming up after 8. Right now, let's go to something that the Speaker of the Manitoba Legislature said yesterday, ruling that opposition Tory leader Abi Khan said, quote, dehumanizing words to Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera. The alleged comments were made during a session last month. Speaker Tom Lindsay said he made the ruling after hearing a recorded session. In it, he says he can clearly hear Khan saying, quote, you're a terrible person, whatever you are, end quote. In his ruling, the Speaker said he was, quote, shocked and appalled to hear such a dehumanizing comment had in fact been made in this chamber, end quote. Khan previously admitted to calling Minister Asseguera, who is non-binary, a, quote, terrible person, end quote. But he said the second part of the statement was taken out of context. Khan said he did not say, quote, whatever you are in its entirety. He said the whole sentence was, quote, whatever you're saying, say it outside, end quote. Now, Minister Asseguera spoke with reporters after the ruling came out.
The leader of the opposition lied about something he did that was not only harmful and hurtful and, yes, dehumanizing and hateful, it was actually dangerous. And I think that's the conversation we cannot shy away from having. The leader of the opposition is a dangerous person to Manitobans in this province and to specifically the LGBTQ+ community. He made a statement in the chamber, one of the most, if not the most esteemed place of work in this province. It is a privilege for us every single day to show up as elected representatives and step into that chamber and serve on behalf of Manitobans. And in that place, I wasn't protected as a Manitoban. In that place, someone could look at me across the aisle and levy a statement against me that was not only disgusting and dehumanizing and derogatory, and transphobic. It was, in fact, dangerous.
Here is what Tory leader Robbie Khan had to say to reporters.
I reviewed the audio recording the speaker is relying on. The audio recording reflects only a fragment of a very chaotic, broader exchange and does not fully represent the content or intent behind what was being said in the chamber. Again, I reiterate, it's a fragment of a sentence, not the entire sentence or the exchange for that day. The health minister has a very hard job. I understand that. I do not agree with their approach to healthcare on many issues, and I'm troubled by the direction of this government. But I will say again, I would not and I did not attack Minister Osguera on the basis of their gender identity or anything else other than their failures in the healthcare department. I apologize for the hurt and disruption that this event has caused anyone. That's why I felt it was important to apologize in the chamber if the comments from this fragment of a sentence have hurt and caused anyone any harm. Not my intent at all. It's not who I am.
So let's listen to a part of the March 17th legislative broadcast during which the alleged insult is said to have occurred.
Again, Honourable Speaker, we are very grateful for our partnerships with school divisions. We're grateful for our partnership with the superintendent from Pembina Trails School Division, with the board chair, both of whom.
Order, please. Stop the clock. Order, please. Order, please. Order! The leader of the official opposition needs to come to order now. Order! Both leaders need to stop hollering back and forth across, and they need to stop it right now.
In yesterday's ruling, who you're hearing there, Speaker Tom Lindsay said at the time members were making too much noise for him to hear the alleged comment. He did say after listening to the audio from a second mic in the chamber, as we've mentioned, Lindsay says it backs up the NDP's account. Here again is Tom Lindsay.
I was shocked and appalled to hear such dehumanizing comment had in fact been made in this chamber. There have been a lot of hurtful, disrespectful things said in this chamber in my time as Speaker, and I truly wish that those comments and this comment had never been heard in this room.
Paul Thomas is here to weigh in for the next 5 minutes here, Professor Emeritus of Political Studies at the University of Manitoba with a special interest in decorum at the Manitoba Legislature. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So what's the state of decorum in comparison to the past for those that might think, you might be wondering, how much we've deteriorated? What's your sense of what's going on there?
It's very low. It's much worse than I remember it, and I'm not thinking about some golden period when the legislature was a calm place where civility and respect for one another prevailed and reasoned arguments were the basis for challenging the government's position and so on. It's never been exactly like that. But it has just become more and more based on excessive partisanship, mainly negative, theatrical, personal. There's been insults, heckling, disrespect, and intimidation and bullying. And unfortunately, the latter has been targeted disproportionately at the women members of the chamber, going in both directions, both from the opposition, targeted at female ministers, and vice versa, coming from the government side, aimed at female opposition members. It's not a healthy condition. There's a kind of toxic interpersonal climate in the legislature that's very discouraging and depressing. Minister of Health was correct. This is supposed to be the central institution of our democracy, and if you witness, especially question period, you would say, "Oh my goodness, this is irresponsible and dysfunctional and should not be tolerated. So, we should expect more."
So let me ask you this, because this is obviously now, a non-binary member of our legislature who also, we heard the health minister say this is also dangerous. If the NDP account is correct, and the Speaker has backed up that account, Khan did indeed direct transphobic comments to Minister Asiguera. How troubling is that?
Mr. Khan has had a series of episodes since he became leader of the party and took the lead in question period where he's been out of line. He's encouraged disorderly conduct in the legislature, and he's faced off with the Premier, who won't back down. The Premier is a competitor and a fighter himself, and so the leaders play a crucial role in setting the tone within the legislature and the cultural norms that prevail within the legislature. This, I think, though, by Mr. Khan is a new low, because I take the Speaker at his word that that ugly, humiliating, demeaning phrase was uttered, and it should never have come out of the mouth of a person serving in the legislature. It shouldn't. In any other workplace, you could be removed from your employment if you engaged in such demeaning behavior of a colleague in the legislature. The members are all meant to be equal and to respect one another, and that should never happen.
What impact does poor decorum have on the public?
Well, if you view this from the outside, even if it's only the clips on CBC News at night, you say to yourself, why are these people behaving this way? We didn't elect them to condone this kind of behavior. Yes, we want passion. Yes, we want disagreement. Yes, we want partisanship to exist so you can have choices in elections, but you don't expect members to go after one another with the kind of insults and heckling and shouting at one another across the aisle. And once it sets in, it sort of becomes embedded in the culture. And that's where we are today. And the place where it has to begin to change is at the top. The leaders have to become more role models of what a legislative assembly should look like in terms of deliberating on the public's business. And the public sees this, and it deepens their cynicism about politicians.
Paul, thank you very much for weighing in this morning. We've got a stormy morning, so I want to leave some time for highway closures here, but we really appreciate your time on this.
Okay, Marcy, always a pleasure. Bye now.
Bye-bye. That's Paul Thomas talking about decorum in the legislature, or a lack thereof, Professor Emeritus of Political Studies at the University of Manitoba. Corey.
I just got calls about collisions on the highways that have caused some blockages. So Cody says Highway 7 northbound just before Stony Mountain. There's been a collision now, and the crews have just blocked northbound Highway 7 just before Stony Mountain there. As well, Julian says 3 miles east of Carmen on Highway 3, there's been a collision there as well, also blocked both lanes on Highway 3 just east of Carmen.
We have school closures. We have problems with the weather, snow coming down, lots of issues. 788-3093 if you want to update anything. Check our website for the school closures. Coming up, we have our Gen Z panel going to talk about hybrid work. And right now, let's get a headline from Heather Wells.
Well, a high school student in Western Manitoba says young people in rural communities need more mental health support. Riley Frost, a student in Rivers Collegiate, that's northwest of Brandon. And you'll recall in March there, a student was arrested on charges of planning a violent attack at that school. We'll hear more in our next news locally coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
World Report, national and international news is next at the top of the clock. 1 minute to 8.
Today on Q. There's a new stage production coming to the National Arts Centre that's telling stories about the environment and climate change, but a little bit differently.
I was profoundly unhappy in this house.
You'll hear from the theater director Nina Lee Aquino about the new play Cicadas and how to tell a story about climate change that doesn't feel like eating your vegetables.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Dave Seglins. 3 federal by-elections could bring Mark Carney's government a majority, and none had a result as knife-edge in the last election as one in Quebec with a 1-vote difference. We'll take you to Terrebonne coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald.
Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President truth this morning, a big day for world peace.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the bombing may have stopped, but the U.S. remains on a war footing. At the same time,
این پیروزی رو به همه مردم ایران
Iranian state media is declaring a crushing victory over the United States. Both countries have agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. But just hours after U.S. President Donald Trump suspended planned strikes, Kuwait and the UAE reported fresh drone and missile attacks, a chaotic start to a truce. Megan Williams has the latest from Dubai.
After 6 weeks of war and thousands killed, a pause in the conflict. It was confirmed less than 2 hours before President Trump's civilization or death deadline, with both sides agreeing to stand down. In Iran, there was jubilation.
I was genuinely happy from the bottom of my heart. Hopefully, this can lead to the lifting of sanctions and allowing Iranians to finally breathe.
But also skepticism.
I can't say I'm fully for or against it. The other side is not reliable. They only stick to agreements when they have no choice.
The ceasefire deal has Iran halting its forces if attacks against it stop. Ships will resume passage through the Strait of Hormuz for 2 weeks, and negotiations begin Friday in Islamabad. Iran's 10-point plan includes recognition of its nuclear enrichment rights and an end to sanctions. Trump called the proposal workable. But Iran, twice burned by attacks during previous talks, has made clear this is not the end of the war. Still, oil prices plunged, with Brent crude down 13%, the biggest single-day drop since the Gulf War of 1991. The UAE declared it had, quote, triumphed in a war we sincerely sought to avoid. But its ambassador to Washington called the ceasefire not enough, demanding a conclusive outcome against Iran. The most worrisome part of Iran's proposal, that it could manage the strait going forward. Here in the Gulf, where missile alerts rang out just hours before the deal was announced, relief is cautious at best. Megan Williams, CBC News, Dubai.
Word of the temporary truce has Iranian Canadians feeling a complex mix of relief and dismay. The CBC's Caroline Bargout spoke with members of the diaspora about why this reprieve feels so complicated.
It is disappointing. It's definitely disappointing.
That's not the reaction you would expect from an Iranian Canadian after news a 2-week ceasefire was reached. But Coquitlam resident Kamir Mahenza says his family back home in Tehran are desperately hoping for a regime change, whatever it takes.
Nobody wants to see their country bombed. They don't want to see devastation. But at the same time, if that leads to the end of this regime, then it's a price to pay.
Hamid Farmani owns a restaurant in North Vancouver. His family lives in Shiraz, a city in south-central Iran where Israel struck a petrochemical facility.
We are full of stress these days.
2 hours before U.S. President Donald Trump's deadline, his family called to say bye for now. Farmani wants to be happy there's a reprieve in the fighting, but doesn't know how to feel anymore.
It's very confusing days. We don't know what should we do. We don't know, should I thinking, should I waiting, or should I just be relaxed? Because these days is very confusing days.
He and Mahenza worry for the future of Iran.
If you don't have freedom, you have nothing.
When all is said and done, they hope Iran is still standing, but the regime is not. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Vancouver.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is insisting the 2-week ceasefire does not apply to Lebanon. The IDF is still mounting ground operations against Hezbollah. Multiple blasts this morning have rocked dense commercial and residential neighborhoods in Beirut. Israel's military says it was targeting Hezbollah locations. The Israeli stance is a clear contradiction of what Pakistan's prime minister said about the ceasefire deal. He said it would include a pause on fighting in Lebanon. The government in Beirut says it wants Lebanon to be included in a regional truce, but will negotiate with Israel directly. As Canada's market reopens to Chinese electric vehicles, Chinese automaker BYD is facing new allegations of forced labor practices. BYD is the world's largest manufacturer of EVs. Its cars are affordable, but are they cheap because the people who built them were abused? Janice McGregor has been taking a closer look in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, where are these allegations coming from?
Martina, China Labor Watch is a New York-based nonprofit that investigates cases of worker exploitation, both inside China and around the world by Chinese enterprises. It received a tip from a migrant laborer at BYD's new $6 billion facility in Hungary, someone who felt trapped by coercive labor practices and was unable to go home as promised. And that led to field interviews with over 50 other workers at the site. The report describes things like 7-day work weeks, no rest at all unless severe weather disrupted construction, no extra pay for all that overtime, delayed wages, and a tangled web of recruiters and subcontracting arrangements, making it hard for workers to hold anyone accountable. Project Officer Elaine Liu says these labor practices set a dangerous precedent.
It's important that consumers know that what's really behind some of these electric vehicles. Chinese workers who are being brought in to work on these sites are being employed in quite horrible conditions.
Janice, as far as these vehicles go, have any of these Chinese EVs even arrived in Canada since the Prime Minister agreed to lower tariffs in return for China buying more canola?
Well, I've asked, and neither the CBSA nor several ministers' offices will say. The Border Services Agency did disclose something else, though. Back in 2023, it says it intercepted and detained some shipments of car parts from China under suspicion that they were made with forced labor. The importer in that case dodged further scrutiny by simply shipping the parts back to China. So CBSA caught those goods in time, but are they catching the goods all the time, especially now that the U.S. is considering more tariffs on Canada for not holding the line against what it considers unfairly traded Chinese EVs?
That's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
Seoul says North Korea has fired numerous ballistic missiles toward its eastern waters. The most recent flew at least 700 kilometers, according to South Korea's military. It also says it suspects Pyongyang of launching another ballistic missile as recently as yesterday. Seoul has been pushing for a thaw in relations between North and South Korea, but last night an official in Pyongyang said South Korea would always be the North's most hostile enemy state. Sentencing is scheduled for today in Los Angeles for the woman referred to as the ketamine queen. Jasveen Sangha is the last person to be sentenced for selling drugs to Matthew Perry. Last year, she pleaded guilty to distribution resulting in death. Steve Futterman reports.
She is the woman accused of supplying the fatal dose of ketamine that killed actor Matthew Perry in October 2023. Jasveen Sangha allegedly conspired with 2 doctors and Perry associates to get the actor the drug he desperately wanted. Last year, she pleaded guilty to a number of charges, including the most serious, distribution resulting in death or serious bodily injury. Prosecutors say this was all about money.
These defendants took advantage of Mr. Perry's addiction issues to enrich themselves.
Martina Estrada was the U.S. attorney when the charges were first filed in August 2024.
In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being.
Matthew Perry's substance issues and their impact were well known. In his 2022 memoir, he described suffering a ruptured colon in 2018, which left him in a coma for 2 weeks. Jasveen Sangha has been described as a known drug supplier, so well known that she was often referred to as the ketamine queen. Federal prosecutors are expected to ask for a 15-year sentence, while defense attorneys will argue that Sangha be sentenced to time served. Most legal experts believe she will be given significant time behind bars. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Recapping our top story this morning, the U.S. and Iran have agreed to a 2-week ceasefire with further negotiations expected on Friday. Overnight, scattered drone attacks across the Persian Gulf. Reportedly, a small number of ships have been allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Both Iran and the United States say they remain on a warlike footing. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Well, it's a beach day for sure, like clear, sunny, and 24 in all of our minds. As we deal with a snowstorm in the first week of April here, all of Manitoba under this. To central and western Manitoba, and we have major issues. We have highways closed. We have school divisions that are closed. There's 11 of them, I think, on our list now. There's 10 in the DSFM closed as well, so lots of problems. In Winnipeg, we had a fast-moving band of snow, brought about 5 centimeters very early this morning. Hopefully that will melt off, but we're also expecting gusty winds today, and we may even see some freezing rain. So it's just a nasty day all around. It's going to be a slow start. Corey in a moment with more on those highways that are closed. If you want to read the list of school divisions, I'll read them in a moment, but they are online at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, if you're attempting to make your way to work, you'll have to watch it, but maybe you're working from home. As more companies rethink hybrid work, questions are being raised about the future of flexibility and the impact it's going to have on the next generation of workers. So we have our Gen Z panel to talk about hybrid work this morning, and they are ready to talk to us in a moment. Right now, let's go to Heather Welsh. She's got headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's Conservative Party leader is being reprimanded after the legislative speaker says a comment Abhi Khan made was dehumanizing. That comment was directed at the first non-binary member of the legislature in Manitoba's history, the Health Minister and Deputy Premier Uzoma Asseguero. We'll hear more reaction to it. And parents in Rivers say a 14-year-old accused of planning a school attack there has threatened their kids in the past. CBC spoke with 3 parents, and we'll hear what they had to say in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get to the closures here. So this is all the divisions that are closed today entirely because of the weather. Lord Selkirk, Seine River, Hanover, Lakeshore, Prairie Rose, Interlake, Mountain View, Red River Valley, Evergreen, Swan Valley, and Borderland. And also in the DSFM, Gabriel Roy, Aurel-le-Moin, Jour de Plain, Saint-Georges, Lagimodière, Pointe-de-Chêne, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Saint-Joachim, and Réal-Bérard, all closed. So stay in your PJs. You're going to want to anyway after you hear what's going on. Corey, traffic, you've been really busy.
Yeah, lots of highway closures. Let's start with that, but it's just assume it's treacherous out on the highway. I'll start with actually a call I got from Laura. South and east perimeter, lots of cars in the ditch right now. So really treacherous out there. Here's the highway closures. Every highway in and out of Dauphin closed right now. Highway 5 from Oka River to Grandview. Highway 10 from the north entrance of Riding Mountain National Park to Pine River. Highway 20 from Oka River to Fork River. Highway 20 from Fork River to Winnipegosis. And then in the west part of the province there, the far west, Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin, and Highway 276 from the junction of Highway 269 to Skonan, all closed due to poor conditions. And there are collisions out there that are causing issues as well and blockages on the highway. Starting with Highway 7, Cody called to say Highway 7 northbound, just before Stony Mountain, there has been a collision that is blocking northbound. Highway 7 entirely right now, emergency crews are blocking that, as well as Highway 3 about 5 kilometers east of Carmen. Heard that was entirely blocked as well due to a collision. And then here in the city, the biggest issue all morning has been at Salter, closed entirely just north of Redwood due to a fire there. Crews are on scene and they have blocked the entirety north of Redwood. As well, Bison at Waverly. Those lights are flashing red because Waverly going northbound, heading onto Bison, someone knocked down a light standard, and that is blocking the far right lane, so keep left to get around that. Also all morning, westbound Broadway. Median lane is now open, but there was a collision there earlier. So just that's westbound Broadway at Main, causing some issues there as well. If you see anything else going on out there on the roads, on the highways, you can give me a call, just like you may be hearing going on right now.
They're calling now.
It's been calling all morning, 204-788-3093.
All right. Corey's going to go pick up the phone. We'll likely hear him in the background of the control room. And Abby's going to deliver a little weather. So, Abby, we obviously know there's a lot in this, but can you just give us sort of the highlights for today?
Yeah, just this heavy snow continues across central and southern Manitoba, Marcy. The snowfall warning still impacting Dauphin and the Interlake region, while the snow squall alert for the Red River Valley region has actually ended, but expect difficult travel with this additional 5 centimeters in the southern part, and then towards the Interlake and the Parkland, you should get up to 15 centimeters once the system moves through. But we're seeing temperatures between 0 and 2 degrees right now in the southern part of the province, and lots of sunshine up north.
Well, if you're working from home today, you're probably really happy you don't have to make it into an office. Hybrid work is not just a workplace trend. After the pandemic, it really did become an expectation. But as more employers are pushing for more time in the office, there's a growing debate right now about flexibility, productivity, and also what the future of work should look like. So we've assembled the future here in the studio. Last week, we reported Manitoba Hydro is going to scale back remote work for many of the employees starting this fall. They're now asking hybrid workers to work in the office 4 days a week instead of the current 3. So as I mentioned, we have our Gen Z panel to discuss where they stand on the topic of hybrid work. Victoria Romero is 23 years old, University of Manitoba political science student, and worked during the pandemic and continues to do part-time work in this hybrid way. Hi there.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome back also to Kyler Zanelli, 22-year-old business student at the University of Manitoba.
Hi.
And welcome back Aidan Peters, 18 years old, University of Manitoba economics student, and tells us he hasn't worked hybrid per se, but he's had a lot of volunteer positions that were completely hybrid. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how important, all three of you are going to get down to this, how important is the option of a hybrid schedule for you?
For me personally, it's not very important. I think people should generally work in the office. I think there is room for flexibility. On days like today, not everyone is going to be able to come in, but there's a certain culture that's fostered when you're at work. There's interpersonal connections you make, and these are the things that are most important to me for working in person, not necessarily the productivity aspect of it.
Got it. And how about for you, Victoria, hybrid work?
I find it incredibly important. Right now I'm working a remote job and then one in person, but the possibility of remote work really makes it a possibility for me to be able to do work while I'm in school. It helps me accommodate my mental health. As a person with a disability, it makes the whole work process a lot easier, even just saving on things like the commute and the stress of going into the office. It's really beneficial for me.
Do you think you're missing out at all to Aidan's point about sort of, that you do the vibe and sort of some of the meetings also that happen at work? There's a lot of discussion about this, that the case for being in the office. Do you feel ever like you're missing out somehow?
I think there's definitely a learning curve with being online and learning how to still facilitate that communication and connection with people. But that's a skill I think we've all been working on since the pandemic and since we were all forced online. I definitely think you can miss a bit of that in-person connectivity, but in the same way that there's also the potential for a lot of, I think, unproductive time when we are forced to go into the office.
Kyler, you want to weigh in on this? How important is this or not?
Relatively speaking, I just think the option to do something is really important, giving people choices and allowing them to pick what they feel is right. Depending on how it's implemented, I think there's a gray area there, but I think the option is fantastic to have.
If you have the option, how do you keep it fair for all of your staff? Because then, you were saying, Aidan, even though you're not a big fan of hybrid work, in your opinion, you more lean toward being in the office, you acknowledge that some flexibility is important. So what kind of rules would you be looking for to keep it, quote unquote, fair?
I don't necessarily know that if everyone has the option, it is fair. Really, you don't have to put in extra rules to say, oh, we're making it more fair. That doesn't quite make sense. If you have the option, you can work at home, you can go into the office. That is theoretically fair. I would just prefer if everyone worked in the office.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And what do the both of you think in terms of what the reasons to be at home should entail? You were saying for you, Victoria, the difference it makes for you to be at home. Should that be sort of should employees have to have reasons to be there, or should it be flexibility for all?
I think that flexibility without questions and trust in the employee, I think, is really important. I saw that Angus Reid data from summer 2025 showed that 3 in 5 Canadians would prefer to spend the majority of time working at home if they could. But within that, women are a big percentage. I think one of the leading groups of people that do want that remote work preference, and that comes down to the gender imbalance within the home and the oftentimes heavy side of the labor that women are doing with childcare, with caring for the home. So I think things like having flexible options, it's not only, to eliminate things like a commute or helping with mental health issues, but it can also contribute to a healthier home and gender equality for people.
I wonder, Kyler, what are your thoughts if you saw a posting that didn't offer a hybrid work as an option? Would you still go for a job like that?
I think so. I think the explicit telling them exactly what the posting is about is quite fair, actually. I think if you go in with expectations and it's promised and then it's taken away, you could see why that would make someone a little upset. You could see why that would make someone a little bit angry. And to Victoria's point, I also think that it's really important because working from home and having the option to work from home is a very good in the personal sense when compared to career development, which is really good in office. But we got to understand that within the time frame, efficiency and productivity has had over 100 years in office to refine itself. It's relatively speaking only had about 5-ish years
for hybrid work.
And so in that case, it's too early to call it. So it's almost giving up if you push for completely full back. And that's saying because, I don't know, studies have shown that Gen Z are the leading people of not wanting fully remote work out of all generations.
It's interesting because if we're not going to measure work based on, you're saying in a way, and tell me if I'm understanding this right, that in a way we shouldn't be measuring the productivity of hybrid work yet because it's a little bit too much in its infancy.
Relatively speaking, no. I think that productivity is the key defining trait because that's one of the things that runs business. But I think that we've had 100 years or so to improve productivity in the office. And so if you're looking for short-term gains, of course you're going to push back to the office. But a lot of people want improved productivity. And if you only had 5 years to work on the one at home.
Well, and it could also change. Like, in the office, if the lunch is going to be an hour, maybe at home it's going to be 2 hours because maybe you are doing more of, maybe as you said, caregiving work if you're a parent, for example, just to speak to that. And maybe you need more flexibility in a different way. It does mean a lot of juggling, though, for employers, right? And for managers to figure it out. I wonder if there were a position for you, Aidan, that said hybrid work is an option. Like, how would that sit with you? You would obviously apply for anything that were full office.
Yeah.
What if it were full hybrid?
Full hybrid, I'm not sure. I would have to give it a bit of a second thought. It would depend what the position is, obviously, because there's some jobs where it kind of does make sense to be hybrid. If you're working, especially with people, say, across the country or across the world, it doesn't make sense to go into an office all the time.
Yeah.
It would just really depend on the position.
Do you think, Victoria, that younger workers like Gen Z prefer a hybrid work model?
I think so, at least among my friends. I know we kind of live in a world where all of us are expected to work and we're all expected to pay for our bills. And even more so if you have extra bills, if you have a medical condition, if you're paying for therapy, if you're paying for, you're a young person paying off your loans, your school, all of these things. We as employees do a lot of accommodating to make sure that we can still show up for our employer to meet not only our obligations, but theirs as well. So I think having employers that are willing to meet young people, especially where they're at, we've grown up with this hybrid environment. We've grown up doing online school. We are prepared for that environment. So I think it is something that, it should be considered and prioritized for the workplace.
When does work-life balance trump job needs?
I think it comes to productivity again. I think if a worker is not well slept, if they don't eat well enough, if they are overly stressed, if they don't have all these things, and I think everybody can relate to this, you're not as productive as you could be. And the whole point of business, in a sense, is being productive at work to get the most done so you cost them the least money.
So somebody might say to that, why is it an employer's responsibility to, well, you're all going to cringe right away. Why is it an employer's responsibility, but it's the argument that'll be mounted, right?
I'd love to hear it.
To take care of somebody's sleeping and eating and work-life balance needs. Like if you have a job and you're paid for that job, you're paid to be productive, and we're all humans, and obviously a good manager is going to say, where you at, and understand that.
Right.
But having said that, that's that blurry line, right? Or are we looking for a more caring workplace that does actually help people with
That's the shift that's happened in business over the years. It's a move towards the triple bottom line. So if you invest in your community can provide more money for you. There's ecological well-being, and then there's also financial well-being, so your financial bottom line. So that's the shift that we've seen in business over the years that's happened. And that is increased productivity and increased profitability because one worker is either a cost or a profit.
And that is pushed by, do you think, how much is that pushed by your generation? Is there a generational thing happening here in our workplaces, do you think, Victoria?
I think especially after the pandemic, a lot of people had their eyes open to a world where work is not the end-all be-all, where we prioritize our health at the same time as prioritizing our employment. And I think, even in a perfect life, you could have a daycare, you could have everything set up. But today, what about when the schools are closed? What are you going to do? How many people today are struggling to move their work online? How many people are struggling to complete projects that might be due tomorrow or by end of week that, having to take care of their children today is causing a big stall? Like just having that option, I think is something that has really been embraced, at least by my generation, moving forward.
Aidan, do you want to weigh in on this? I saw you sort of responding as we were talking.
I don't know. I think there are better ways to promote a work-life balance than, say, hybrid work. I think, you have something like a 4-day work week just in general. You have shorter working hours. You have just better labor laws, better wages, things that will actually promote a work-life balance. I don't think hybrid is sort of the solution to that because I think it does have an effect on people's mental health, whether we realize it or not. They're not interacting with others in the same way. So if we're talking just from a productivity stance, I don't think hybrid work would be the solution, or work-life balance.
Right. I think it's a current state of hybrid work. I think if somebody came to you and said, hey, I can make you 2/3 more profit than you're making now, you have to accept that you're making 1/3 now. Like it's the case where you need to invest long-term in the future. But what you said with a 4-day work week is flexibility, if I'm understanding you correctly. And that's the exact same thing hybrid work does, in a sense, except it's more or less different when it comes to how you go about it and what's the approach. It's just one is more well refined than the
Except Monday to Thursday, you'd have people in the office. You just have more time off, and when you're off, you're off.
Yeah, that's what I would have.
That's where your head is going.
So in office-wise, moves to hybrids have fixed schedules. So it forces people to enter the office so they're building community still, all on the same day. And then management picks the days you're off.
Would we need to have more hybrid work, do you think, if in office, sort of these lessons that you guys are talking about from your generation specifically, to care more about work-life balance, about the person, to be more flexible, were honored? Like if someone said, it's a snow day, I'm going to be in 2 days later, but I'll come to the office, for example. I'm just wondering whether or not part of what's created this desire for more flexibility is because we've lost that somehow in our 9-to-5s. Victoria?
Yeah, I think definitely, like, especially in the last, 20, 30 years, I think there's been like a steady decline in quality of work, quality of employment, people's quality of life and their happiness being derived from their jobs and what they're able to do. I think, when we think about little things, like even just like having a good lunch and a good breakfast, wearing clothes that make you feel comfortable with people who have sensory needs, different things like that. There are a lot of things that, they may seem like you are looking for an excuse to work online, or, that's just not how things used to be and you're too soft now. But a lot of the times it's more so about recognizing that the way we were doing things for so long was not working for a lot of people. And it led to a lot of stress, a lot of burnout. Yeah.
If your productivity is not there, this is last question. I'm going to yes and no you guys.
Sure.
So if your productivity is not there and you're doing hybrid work, should you be told you have to come back in the office? This is a tough one.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think that person should never be in that position in the first place.
Really good conversation, you guys. We could talk about this a lot longer. I know you'll be back. Thank you, Aiden.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. Thank you, Kyler.
Thank you.
So that's our Gen Z panel. Always great conversations with Victoria Romero, with Kyler Zanelli, and with Aiden Peters. Victoria's 23, studies poli-sci. Kyler is 22, studying business, and Aiden is 18 years old and studying economics. If you're a Gen Zer and you have thoughts on hybrid work, you can weigh in at 788-3205. Well, the busiest person of the morning. Bye, you guys. Have a good day. Take it easy with the snow out there. Our panel's leaving. The busiest person of the morning might be Corey, who's been picking up the phone like mad.
I need your bikes. Yeah, lots of issues going on out there. But the most recent thing, Highway 3 is actually now closed right now from Carmen to 3 kilometers east of Carmen. We heard earlier that there's been a collision in that area, so you can't go down Highway 3 between Carmen and about 3 kilometers east of that. Also got an update from Virginia. I mentioned a collision earlier on Highway 7 northbound, just outside of Stony Mountain, just before Stony Mountain. Virginia called to update and say originally it was blocked, but now crews are letting people get around on the shoulder on Highway 7 going northbound. Also, Claude called about a couple stalled cars southbound Pembina on the Cloverleaf to Jubilee on the inside turning lane. There's a stopped car, as well as southbound Dunkirk on the overpass over Kingston Row in the median lane. Another stopped car causing some backups there as well. Also, a reminder, all morning Salter closed both ways entirely because of a fire right on Salter, just north of Redwood. So lots of issues keeping an eye out there. Still lots of highway closures as well. All the highways around Dauphin, as well as Highway 3 from Robin to Russell, all closed due to poor conditions. You can give me an update still if you see anything else going on out there. That number to call, 204-788-3093. That's just a few of the things. We're running out of time.
All right, let's get into what's happening with the call-in on Radio Noon between 12:30 and 1. Marjorie Dalhouse has popped in our last minute here before the news. What's up for your call-in?
Well, we thought we maybe do something that might warm your heart on this cold and wintry day. We're talking about volunteers. Volunteer Manitoba has put out their list of nominees. So we want to give you an opportunity to call in, recognize someone or a group, an organization, and celebrate volunteers coming up on Radio Noon today. So give us a call. Text us after 12:30.
All right. Thanks, Marge.
Thanks, Marcy.
Between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. o'clock. Well, we are coming up to news time. I want to thank the folks who worked on the show today. Our reporter in unit, Jim Agapito. Also, Chelsea Kemp, who was in from Brandon with her special report for us today on one of our stories that we were updating. In our control room, very busy, Corey Funk, Abby Adeyemi, and Darren Marash. Always a great job, guys. Thanks for your work today. In our newsroom, we want to thank Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison, as well as Joni Nicolo, who are out there, and our producers, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez. Right now, your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is a white 0 out there. The snow appears to have ended, although we do have a chance of flurries through the day. A high this afternoon of 2. Well, if you felt like you were done with winter and are ready for spring, then you are disappointed this morning. CBC's Alana Cole joins us live now to tell us why. Alana?
It's another winter morning, even if it's April. People living in central and southern Manitoba are getting hit with a blast of snow. We spoke with Environment Canada. They say right now areas seeing the most of it are Riding Mountain and parts of the Interlake. Now, Lisa Teal was leaving work in Selkirk following a night shift around 6:45 this morning. She said the ride home to the Winnipeg beach area usually takes around 35 minutes. Today, it took an hour.
Right out of the driveway from work, all the way down Highway 9. Very little visibility, very thick snow, icy underneath, so very, very cautious driving.
Several highways and schools are closed. You can see where on our website. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Thanks so much, Alana. Now, all this moisture is not what parts of the Interlake need. Manitoba's Hydrologic Forecast Center says there is an elevated risk of spring flooding in the Fisher River basin. Officials say the flood risk is high and could reach levels similar to the spring flood of 2014, which devastated Peguis First Nation. Manitoba's Conservative Party leader is being reprimanded after the legislative speaker says a comment Abby Khan made was dehumanizing. That comment was directed at the first non-binary member of the legislature in Manitoba's history. Ian Fraze reports.
Heckling in Manitoba's legislature. Tory leader Abby Khan.
School divisions. We're grateful for our partnership with the superintendent from...
Khan's recent comment was directed to NDP Health Minister Yazoma Asseguera, who identifies as non-binary. Khan is heard saying, "You are an awful human being, whatever you are." The audio recording, confirmed and released by Speaker Tom Lindsay.
I was shocked and appalled to hear such dehumanizing comment.
Asseguera says Khan's comment isn't appropriate for an elected official.
That was not only disgusting, dehumanizing, and derogatory and transphobic, it was in fact dangerous.
But Khan denies spewing hate.
And I did not attack Minister Asseguera on the basis of their gender identity.
He says his comments are being taken in partial context, and that he was calling on the NDP member to repeat whatever they were saying outside the legislature. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, an expert in political studies says decorum in the legislature is getting worse. University of Manitoba Professor Emeritus Paul Thomas says question period has become rife with personal insults, bullying, and intimidation.
There are more and more episodes where the speaker tries to rein in members and he can't curtail the hostilities that are going on within the legislature.
Thomas says party leaders and House leaders need to set a better example. Parents in Rivers say a 14-year-old accused of planning a school attack has threatened their kids in the past. CBC spoke with 3 parents. Their identities are being protected out of concern for their family's safety. All had similar stories of the accused youth threatening their children at knife point. 2 of the parents say RCMP were alerted after one incident last year.
I didn't have any sense of safety and there was no justice, so I was stuck. And now all I can think about are the what ifs and what if he hadn't been caught. Your mind really starts to go crazy.
RCMP tells CBC they can't confirm if the accused teen had past interactions with police because the case involves a youth. The teen appears in a Brandon court later this month. A Winnipeg nonprofit says it is expecting more Somalis to cross the border into Manitoba as the weather warms up. Abdikair Ahmed at Resilia Community Wellness Centre estimates more than 100 Somalis came to the province this winter fleeing an immigration crackdown in Minnesota.
People were weeks and weeks of not leaving their apartments just to make sure that they are not caught. Now that the conditions are improving and the weather is changing, we expect an influx of many other refugee claimants from Somalia or any other country that has refugee claimants that are facing similar circumstances in the U.S.
A new border reform bill in Canada makes it harder for people to claim asylum if they're coming from the U.S. Ahmed says no laws will stop people from crossing if they fear for their lives. And soon, Air Miles customers won't be able to collect miles at Manitoba liquor marts. Liquor and Lottery says its stores will stop offering reward miles June 1st. The Crown Corporation tells CBC it's exploring other options. Peter Soika is an expert on loyalty programs. He says it's not unusual for these programs to lose and gain partners over time.
This is just kind of a natural evolution we've kind of seen with a lot of loyalty programs, in that they lose partners, they gain partners, and that's kind of where this has gone.
Air Miles have been offered at Manitoba Liquor Mart since 1998. You can find the latest news and weather updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks for the morning, Heather.
Thank you.
Corey Fung.
List of closures on highways is growing. Highways all around Dauphin closed. Highway 83 from Russell to Roblin also closed, as well as Highway 3 from Carman, just about 3 kilometers east of Carman. Here in the city, the Salter both ways around River Redwood also closed due to a house fire. Check Manitoba 511 before I head out. Very treacherous out there all around, including the perimeter.
Yeah, so take it easy. We'll see how long this is going to last through the day. Abby?
Yeah, take care. Be ready for rapid changing of our conditions. This system should finally taper off later in the evening as it moves out of the province. But expect about 5 to 15 centimeters more for the Dauphin region.
Okay, everyone, buckle down. It'll all hopefully be gone soon, but right now we're still in spring in Manitoba, first week of April. Take care out there, be safe, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow right here on Information Radio. Remember, local programming here through the day on 89.3. I'm Marcy Marcusa. The Current's next.